That was pretty good information.
Yes, it was pretty good information.
Yes, pretty good information. And now we're starting the recording right after that's not available. I just told you where Nicolas Cage hid the buried treasure, and now we start.
Technically, I can still pull that beginning from Twitch, which is what I like about Twitch, because it records for you to keep it for 14 days. But the recording is that so that when I get it from while I'm doing it, I don't have to download it from Twitch to upload it to YouTube. I just straight up upload it to YouTube.
So all those things I just submitted to and are still somewhere living live on the internet.
I can leave it out if you want me to.
Yeah, no, don't mention, because I think when I graphically detailed the murder plot against the 25th president that I had planned.
Yeah. Okay, we'll keep that up. Yeah. The 25th president.
Yeah, 25th.
Like, what, 100 years?
Yeah, I was gonna travel back in time. You know when people are like, if I go back in time and kill Hitler, I would kill. I don't know who the 25th. James Buchanan. I don't know who he. I'm just naming random presidents now.
Is that even the president, James Buchanan?
He was a president. He was one of the presidents somewhere in there. I should have paid attention in history class, but Aubrey Lutz was wearing this really low-cut shirt that day, and so I know shit all about the presidents.
Yeah. In history class, I used to have the hottest girl in school sit across from us because we were like in a U shape. And she would always wear these tiny shorts and just lean back, and I'd be like, "Oh my goodness, woman, close your legs, you're flashing us." All the people on this side.
There's something instinctive about guys. We had the same and it's so young that it starts in us. I remember in elementary school, we had to sit crisscross applesauce. And this was like, we were in first grade, but there was one girl who was the hottest girl in class. Let's again, this is sixth grade. We're all like first grade. We're all 6-year-olds. There was one girl who always wore skirts.
How do you know this is the hottest girl in class when you're
Because we all agreed. We're like, she's really cute. Karina was a really cute. And so guys would literally fight to sit across from her because we had to sit crisscross applesauce when she wore dresses. And there's this like instinctive pervertedness that even existed in 6-year-old children where we're like, I don't know why, but I want to see her panties.
I think we should have gone over the rules because one of them is, remember, this will be online forever.
Yeah, no, this is, I talk about way worse. This is, and it was like all of the guys would fight, so it was a very weird, it was supposed to be a circle, but it was like a semicircle with all the crowded, perverted little 6-year-old boys. Women are like, oh man, I wish I knew what was going on in guys' heads. No, you don't want to know. Because even when we were in elementary school, we just had we didn't understand it, but there was just these vile, horrific thoughts going through our
at
hearts.
least you have other people who are involved in it, so they can vouch, be like, yeah, you know, what else could we have done? You know,
yeah, well, we could have done so many better things. We didn't know, but there's just something wrong with men. I think most people won't agree with that. From the time we're small children, there's something wrong with us.
We're very violent. I know that because I'm watching my kids. I have 2 kids. I have a 3-year-old.
I'm sorry. Or do you like him?
Kind of.
I'm mostly sorry.
No, of course I do. I love my kids. I got 2 boys. But like from a very young age, it's like to see what my son was attracted to, just like automatically attracted to more violent-ish games. The more violent, the better. But yeah, he gets scared easily when it comes down to like other things. So it's like, okay, well, you love playing these shooting games, but when you watch a scary movie, you're all like, yeah, I don't want to watch it. But like, just it's interesting when I'm watching him grow up, just what he would be attracted to more, and how easily his mind was also influenced by outside sources. Yeah. It's like, oh, this other kid likes that, and now I like it. Like, well, why do you like it? Well, because it's cool. Well, why is it cool? Because he likes it. Okay, but what do you think about it? And it's just,
he thinks whatever the commercials in between the cartoons tell him.
There's no more commercials now.
On YouTube. He thinks whatever the 15-second skippable ad tells him.
Yeah. I haven't even done the intro yet. So sorry, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the UNG Odyssey podcast. Today, I'm sorry, my co-host couldn't make it.
Oh, okay.
He's the G in UNG. He's dumped. He couldn't make it. He works on the weekends, but
one of those losers with an income.
Yeah, loser going to work and having a paycheck every Friday.
What's that like?
I don't know. Why are you just smiling at me like that? Anyway, today we have the very, very experienced, probably the most experienced comic I've had on my podcast, except for Butch Lord. Butch Lord he doesn't run, but like he helps the Heinz comedy clubs here.
Does he handle booking? The number one question in comedy is always, who books that? Is that...
The booker actually is, you can, Ryan Perio, which I can link you up with him if you want to. Also, Ryan Perio, and then also the owner, and his name is, oh man, I should not fade on his name.
Yeah, no, this is a good time. Remember, this is online forever.
Randy.
This is online
Randy.
forever.
This is Randy. Very cool guy. They're the ones who pretty much choose the lineup for. I think Randy's the one who officially picks who comes in, as far as like from out of town, the comics to come to headline. And Ryan Perio, he's the guy who kind of like chooses which one of us comics are ready to go to the next level and start emceeing, and then maybe like featuring acts also. He's the one who helps develop the comics to do that.
A lot of clubs will have that, where they have like a national booker who handles incoming talent, and then also a local talent production. Which I was surprised. This is my first time out to Texas. I was surprised how incredibly beautiful Hyenas is. Like just even aesthetically. So it's a very well put together club, but just the physically, like you walk into a lot of comedy clubs and they're in like the middle of a strip mall, in between like a check cashing place and a nail salon. And like you walk in and it's basically they just tossed up some curtains and like a fake brick wall. But like heading into Hyenas, I was like they're really, I think it kind of reminded me the attention to detail was like the same level that you get at like Brad Garrett's comedy club in Vegas. And so like I did not expect to be in Fort Worth, Texas, and to see what I would consider in A-list production level of a club. So that place is wonderful.
Yeah, they have 3 here. They have Dallas, Plano, and Fort Worth. Probably Fort Worth though is the nicest one. Plano's cool, and so is Dallas. It's cool. I like it. There's still the one in Dallas is kind of in like a mallish type. There's a movie theater around the corner, but it's not like strip mall to where you'll see like the donuts owned by the Asians down the street or something like that.
Yeah, no. There's like one of the signs in Korean, and you're like, okay.
They're still in very good locations. But I would say Fort Worth is probably the coolest one, the best looking one, and also has like the aura of it is probably the best.
Yeah. No, and people weren't on their cell phones during the show because you can't get service down there.
So. Oh yeah, I know.
I had to keep walking out of the room and be like, I gotta check my Facebook ads. Okay. Oh no, I gotta go all the way upstairs.
Did I even say your name? Did I say Collin Williams?
I don't know.
Williams,
Yeah.
Man, it's on the podcast, the crappy little UAG podcast that I throw here. That I've been doing for almost the whole time since I've started doing comedy.
Which I don't. How long is that?
A year and 6 to 8 months, I believe.
Okay, so that's consistent.
Yeah.
Time to actually get a feel.
I took a little break over the summer because I had my kids, and
once again, I'm so sorry about that. I mean, there'll be good material later on. But,
no, of course I came up with material while they were there. I had nothing else to do but think of what can I make funny about this whole situation.
Yeah. Okay, listen, you little shithead. Do one more thing. I need a closer.
Yeah. And I took them to different parks and whatnot, and got to interact with them, and just saw how they're doing things. And my youngest one, the 2.5, 3-year-old, he's pretty wild, man. He is.
Can they walk and talk? I don't know children well. I try to avoid them.
He can walk. He talks not very well, but he's getting there. But like one of the weirdest things is like how stubborn he is. He's very stubborn. And like he would ask for something and I'd give it to him, and he'd be like, "No." Like, what do you mean no? You just asked me for it. You said yes. Now that it's in front of you, you don't want it. And the main reason is because he didn't like the fact that I opened everything for him. So
did you ever just give it to him closed and then just watch his frustrated little ass just like try to open it for 4 hours?
I did. I gave him a high C with the straw. I was like, "You do it then." He's all like,
because that's some good Snapchat and Instagram content right there. Just the child just no.
But then he gets mad and he throws it away.
There you go. Yeah.
Oh man, it's not.
Let them. Like, this is why I don't babysit, because I'd be like, let them starve.
So one of the funny things, my cousin was watching for him while I was at work. And my cousin's like a big dude, and most kids are scared of him because he's just a big, scary, all these tattoos, bald, just rough-looking guy. But my son, he's like, I've never had to deal with a kid like most kids are scared of me. He's like, but your son would just stare me in the eye and just take whatever food he had and just crush it, and just do like that and just look at me. And he was like, man. man. I don't know what's wrong with him, but that is good.
I hope
creepy.
I hope you know only you can prevent a future school shooting at this point in time. You've got that's like signs of a sociopath.
Oh, but I kind of disciplined him out of that a little bit. You know, I don't want to, but sometimes I have to put my foot down. Be like, I'm not gonna settle for this. You know, you can't be acting like this around me, or when you're with me. So, but then he went back to his mom's and he's back to doing it all over again. Like with me, I do not let them touch my phone. I just.
Well, there's sensitive content on there. I assume you have a girlfriend who sends you, who I assume also has a camera phone. I know I have a girlfriend with a camera phone, and I don't open my Google Photos.
I have a special camcorder for that one.
We got an HD 4K with slow mo on there. It's 3D.
No, it's just like I don't like the fact that he wants to just be on the phone the whole time. So it's like, no, you're not gonna be on the phone the whold time. Like we're gonna interact, we're gonna do stuff, we're gonna walk around, and but then he goes over there, and he's right back doing it too on baby mom's phone, and she'll tell me that, oh, he had the phone. He's like, I'm just like, why do you let him control your phone like that? You need your phone. For one, I'm trying to talk to my other son who's older, and I'm trying to message you to see when we can communicate to make sure that you're not working. But you know, her phone's always dying, or when I call, he'll send me to the voicemail. He hangs up.
Rejected by your kid. Dad's ruining my race. I gotta win this Asphalt 9.
YouTube video and whatnot. Oh man. Anyway, okay, so
I can get so off track, so just reel me back in whenever.
Oh no, dude, I totally do that. That's what this podcast is all about. That's why.
Okay, what? Yeah, I should probably. What is the podcast about?
It's a comedy-based podcast, and I like to sit down and talk to the comedians I work with because I want to get to know them on a more personal level because I see them all the time, and you know when we're out, we joke around, but there's not really that much one-on-one interaction, and then also I like to get, you know, to learn, if I can learn something from them, cool, you know, some a little more veterans, or we just talk around.
I'll teach you how to tie bowline knots today.
What?
I don't know, you said learn something, I'm like, is this Boy Scouts? Like, am I supposed to, like, okay class, we're gonna learn crocheting?
Well, yeah, I was gonna, you know, see what kind of interest you have, see what you can teach me. But like, that's what the podcast is really. We just shit the shit, we hang out. I have one where we sit down and watch the UFC with a group of people, and we'll talk while we're watching that. What else? That's pretty much it though. But like, I think it's cool that I get the chance to sit down with a lot of these comics, and we'll be able to talk about everything, and then I want to see like what it'll look like in 10 years, and we'll have all this backlog. Be like, remember when we were doing all that stupid shit and whatnot, and I don't know.
So yeah, someone 12 years in, you'll be looking back and be like, remember when that person did comedy? Remember how he quit after? Yeah. Oh man, I can't believe that person's still alive. That one's dead. Well, I did a talk you can see on TED.com, basically a TED Talk for TEDx Salt Lake City, 2018, and it was about joking about trauma and stuff like that. So there's really no data about mental health in comedy. So I'm having to conduct what was now the second largest survey of comedians' mental health in the world. Mm-hmm. We are drastically. When I say suicide, like we're way above everyone else. Like,
oh yeah.
I think we're about 39 times more likely to kill ourselves than the average person, with about 1 in 5 comics having tried to kill themselves. So when I say like, oh, remember when that person was alive? That's a true, like, I know so many people personally, and then like you watch the national scene, it's like, oh, where that scene lost one, that scene, there. So we're dropping like flies. So this is really, some of these episodes will be collector's editions eventually. It'll be having the original.
All the mics coming in good? Okay, cool. You know what? Funny that you bring that up because I was listening to an interview with Carlos Mencia with this other guy, and they're talking about the confrontation that do you know about this?
I know about a lot of confrontation. Yeah,
the whole Joe Rogan thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I very much support Joe Rogan's actions to that because I could feel how that would hurt a comic on a personal level, because when you work with a comic and you think that you guys are like cool and everything's cool, and then you find out later on that comic might be saying something behind your back, and you'd be like, oh, I was friends with that person, and they're saying this. Why didn't they say it to me in person? I have no problem taking criticism to my face about how shitty I am, because I have a lot of shitty sets. I know I do. Other comics be like, man, you suck today. I was like, yeah, I have no problem with that. But when they say it like to down talk, to talk shit when I'm not around, that right there is, I'm not cool with that at all. And I will.
Well, if I remember correctly, Mencia was also accused of stealing material from Joe,
Yeah,
along with
that's
a
what the
bunch of
problem
other
was.
people, which that's
And
in comedy. Here's what is to me always one of the saddest things, and we've seen this play out more in the last few years. It's changed a bit, but it used to be that a comedian could be known as a rapist, and he would be blackballed from less places than if he was known for stealing material, which is sad commentary on both parts of like, hey, we didn't take sexual assault in the community seriously enough, but it also shows you how serious comedians will take stealing material. So like that's we need to kind of flip and address both of them, where we can be like, hey, let's go ahead and make sure that comedians that blackball material are banned, but also, sexual assault isn't allowed in clubs. But that is how much. So when Joe attacked Carlos, it was not surprising to me at all, because of how much passion there is about your material when you write it, and how personal it is when people do that. But that's how, previously, like I said, I've seen so many clubs that would blackball people for stealing material, but not all of these other horrific things, because that's how big of a taboo it is in comedy.
And well, like I was saying, I went into the video and I was like, okay, disregard my previous thoughts of what happened, and just come into this, watch this video, give Mencia a clean slate, and let's see what he says. And it was total bullshit from the get-go. Total bullshit. I was furious at what he was saying. For one, not only was he saying that he didn't like really steal the jokes from Bill Cosby and whatnot, but like he was also saying that it was like very aggressive the way he did it, and like I was like, he should have addressed it, but his managers or whatever that he pays money to be the manager to give him advice, and he's like, they're telling me not to address it, so I'm not going to address it. Nowhere did he say I should say something about how I shouldn't have done any of that. Nowhere did he apologize. And then he's all like, "Oh, I had this. I was going through this thing where I feel like committing suicide." And then and one thing he said, I was just like, and I started thinking like, "Hey, dude, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you thinking this for?" Anybody who thought about committing suicide, it's not that easy to just go like, "What are you doing? What's wrong?" No, it doesn't work that way. And it hurt me on a pretty close personal level, because I've had suicidal thoughts before, and I really wanted to act on it, but I didn't. And then nor did I think, what am I doing? I'm perfect. No, I had to struggle through that and fight all the feelings and fight the whole thoughts of I have at the time I only had one kid. I have a son. It's not right to just allow him to take myself out of this and to think that he would be better growing up without a father. It's just like, it's way more intense thinking other than that. And even if he was trying to just summarize it, those are not the correct words. A person who's thought about committing suicide does not just snap like that.
It's not a quick back and forth.
No, it's very frustrating.
Yeah, well, that's what an introduction to my the show I do, which is a short called My Suicide Note. One of the things I say is, most suicides aren't caused by a single event. It's not a single breakup. It's not a single job loss. It's not even a single thing that would make a white chick literally can't even. It's usually an extended river of shit that just eventually overflows long enough, it breaks the dam, destroys the village below, called hope. Mm-hmm. So you're not going to have, because it's not just one quick little thing, you're not just going to snap back out of it, because it takes so much to rebuild that dam and work through all of the giant flood of issues that have now suddenly broken through. So it's not, you're not just quickly like, maybe, no, you know what, you're right, that was a bad idea. And then you're not just fine after that.
Yeah, no, it's not that simple, man. He's like, I saw a therapist and blah, blah, blah. It's like,
yeah, it's not like, I'm going to kill myself, and you just pull up a gif of a cute kitten, and you're like, never mind.
Yeah. And I put it on my Facebook so other people can watch it. If you want to get on there later on, just see what I was talking about. It's really aggravating, and I haven't had, as far as I haven't been into that long at all, but I've never run into a situation like that where I have to confront another comic or like seen other comics jokes. Now, I do have premises that are kind of in the same format as one comic, and I talked to him about it, and I was like, dude, hey, we have kind of similar the same joke. I hate my girlfriend's cat. You hate your girlfriend's cat. And
Wait, did you read my post earlier about how my girlfriend's cat annoys me?
No, I didn't.
I literally was like, I'm going to go on and possibly give away the secret of Pirate Dave's buried treasure, or I'll just talk about how much my girlfriend's cat pisses me off.
Oh, so you have the same problem.
I'm still writing bits on it, but yeah, no, everyone's girlfriend's cat pisses them off.
It's
a common idea, yeah.
And it's because her cat's such a whiny little fucker.
That's because it's a cat.
And he'll cry at like 3 in the morning, and at 4 in the morning, and at 5 in the morning. It's loud whining, and whatever. She's grown to be a cat. She's actually gonna be moving in with me later in this month.
I'm not gonna do the I'm sorry joke because she's sitting right over there.
It's okay, you can do it. She knows that I'm sorry.
I'm sorry for you.
So it's gonna be interesting. And I know that how much she cares about the cat, and I know that cats. It's fun to mess around with the cat. That's how I deal with it. Like, you're annoying, but I'll goof around with you, just cause Otherwise, I just totally hate the cat if I can't have any fun with it. So
I like torturing the cat in ways that are completely non-harmful, but they hate. So my favorite is I pick up my girlfriend's cat and I just kiss his stomach. And he hates people touching or kissing his stomach. So like, I'll just be like, time for tummy kisses, and it's the most stupid thing that I could possibly do.
You don't worry about him tearing out your eyeballs?
I just grab, I get the paws, and it's like, it is torture to him, but it's also kind of PETA approved torture. I mean, I guess technically I didn't get his consent before I kissed him, so that's a bad trend for comedy. But but at least all I'm doing is kissing his soft tummy, so it feels nice and soft on my face, and then it doesn't actually do anything to harm the cat. But it annoys him, and it pisses the hell out of him. He's just like,
well, I don't want to say what I've done before because mine was not PETA approved.
You got a spray bottle too. There's a lot of different things. Spray bottle's fine. That one's fine. Although my girlfriend did not like when I used the spray bottle on her. That was apparently not supposed to classically condition.
Yeah, they might not like that.
Yeah, no, she liked the parts when I was giving her chocolate up in advance.
I might try that with Alana. What do you think, Alana? You think you like that? The spray bottle? No, back away.
Well, you got
no eating on the bed.
Yeah. No. So my girlfriend wanted to try anal, and finally, and she's like, okay, I'm gonna need some. She's like, I'm gonna try this. I need some positive reinforcement going to this. And so throughout the day, secretly, she's like, just like be like, yeah, you're doing great. Like I need. When we're going through and doing the stuff and trying, because you build up, you use like little trainer kits and whatnot, and so I brought. I poured us some chocolate chips and I put them in a mug, and then throughout the day, like when she was saying things like, I can't wait to try, I just be like, here you go, and I would give her some chocolate as a positive. And then she said something bad about it, so I grabbed the spray bottle, like, no. Right?
She didn't take care of
She didn't like that part. She liked the chocolate.
Oh, okay. So that's what you mean when you're like, gosh, you like the chocolate part, but not the
but not the spray bottle part. Yeah, I know. I know. When I'm talking about anal, I say that she liked the chocolate part. That could be.
What kind of wild environment is your household, man? It sounds hilarious.
It's a fun time. She's my girlfriend is very much a yes-ander, which for comedy, ideally it's the improv basic of whatever someone gives you, whatever they say, you don't reject it, you go yes, and then you add something onto it. And so we will do that sometimes to our own detriment, where we'll keep going back. People will watch us argue, and they think that we actually mean some of the things that we're saying, but we'll just go back and forth and have so much fun. And like our friends will be like, I feel awkward now. It's like, no, it's okay. Sometimes mommy and daddy fight, but she'll do really fucked up things. Like, so she got her tubes tied She found a doctor that would tie her tubes at 24 with no kids. She got them tied, and they gave her photographs of the inside. So they put little clamps on the ovaries. They don't actually tie them. They put little clamps. It looks like little ear cuffs that they give teenagers that they get. So it looks like her ovaries are just going through like an emo phase. And they're like you know the little like metal ear cuff.
Oh yeah.
It looks like that, but on her ovaries there's like little two of them. So it looks like her ovaries are just like in their emo phase. I'm like, I don't want to have any kids. Life is pointless. Like that's. And so they gave her photos of her ovaries. And she put them in a baby frame and hung them on the wall in our living room. So, like, that's her level of fucked up, which is why we get along perfectly fine. Because people will be like, what's that? And I'm like, that's inside my girlfriend's vagina. That's which I dated a porn star, so I'm used to having people see my girlfriend's vagina, but usually not on the living room wall. It's a little different. That's what we, so, yeah, the entire spray bottle thing, that is completely on par with our average daily existence of...
How long you guys been dating?
2.5 years? Yeah, 2.5. We started dating April 15th, 2017. I picked that day so that way, because it's tax day. So I figured that way I won't ever forget our anniversary. No, I didn't. I did forget to pay taxes, but I didn't forget our anniversary. IRS did not like that. I filed like 4 months late, but I remember the anniversary. We had a great anniversary at Arby's.
That's more important, actually.
Yeah,
you'll just go to jail for a little bit for taxes. But with your girlfriend, you'll be in the doghouse for years because they'll never forget that.
Mm-hmm. The only things that are sure are death and taxes, and I would be dead if I forgot the anniversary.
Yeah.
As is, I got in trouble for not saying happy birthday to her on her birthday.
I have to put a note in my phone for her birthday, so that's how I always see it and I always remember it.
Well, I knew it was her birthday. She just said, so I was raised Jehovah's Witness, so I didn't have birthdays growing up. So for me, they're not like a big thing. And she knew that, and she's like, okay, my birthday's not a big thing. You don't need to like do anything for it. And I'm like, okay, that works perfect for me. So I knew it was her birthday, and I just didn't say happy birthday because I didn't. She's like, it's not a big thing. And I don't have like happy birthday ingrained in my mind. And then at the end of the day, she's like, why don't you say happy birthday? And I'm like, oh, that was a trap, wasn't it? That was.
Oh, yeah.
It's not important. That's okay. That's one of those.
You know what's funny? My mom is a Jehovah's Witness. She became a Jehovah's Witness maybe about 12 years ago. And we all say that she became a Jehovah's Witness because she got tired of all of us celebrating things and always doing it at her house. So she's like, no more. I'm Jehovah's. I don't celebrate anything. Don't do anything at my house. I'm not cooking for anybody anymore. She's just done it. And she just like went hardcore. And now like if we have Thanksgiving dinner, she won't come. But she'll be like, oh, but bring the food to my house the next day. It's like, Mom, you might as well just come for Thanksgiving.
And she saves so much money now on gifts.
Yeah, totally. Because she got tired of buying all the grandkids stuff. And
yeah, sorry kids, I'm religious now. So I'm religious and broke. It's convenient timing.
Yeah. Well, no, now she's rich as she's ever been, but she doesn't want to do it. And for like birthdays or anything like that, she won't accept gifts. And she won't celebrate birthdays, but she'll be like, you can give me money still. Like, fine, Mom. Here's
you gotta give it to him on a different day.
Yeah, it's my mom's so silly.
Here's a random $50 on July 27th for no reason.
You know what? One of the weird things about her is she had her eyebrows tattooed. And I told her, I was like, when did you get your eyebrows tattooed? She's like, what are you talking about? I was like, your eyebrows. They're not real. It's not like you colored them in. They're tattooed. And she goes, no, I've always had them like that. I was like, Mom, you have not. I've known you 36 years now that I've been alive or whatever. Your eyebrows have not been tattooed on this whole time.
Well, when did she get the tattoos?
Like 6 years ago.
Oh my God, she broke the rules. You can't get tattoos in the religion.
Oh, she did that, huh?
Yeah, you can't. No tattoos. It's one of the rules. Yeah, no. Tell her like, it's no ink upon the skin is a line in the Bible. Yeah, you can fix your teeth. There's no verse in the Bible about teeth. I mean, there's some weird verses in there. There's one dude who had to cut off a bunch of foreskins in order to get a daughter. So I mean, I guess. Yeah, that's
in the Bible.
That is in the Bible. There was a man who had to cut off the foreskins and basically circumcise these adult males. Which you're not going to circumcise people voluntarily. So pretty much he had to murder a bunch of people and then cut off part of their penis in order to prove himself worthy.
How does that make any sense?
That's
at all?
that's how you learn morals.
That sounds like he was trying to get advice from a shaman who just had like this crazy inclination to like foreskin and just wanted a bunch of it. He's like, I'll tell you how you can get a daughter. Just give me a bunch of dick skin.
Old school God was like way too penis obsessed. Like his.
He really was,
yeah.
right? Really.
He had a lot of things where I think he was still figuring things. He was like a teenager who was figuring things out, and he had it's like how all kids when they're teenagers like way too penis obsessed, like everything is a dick joke, and then you grow up later on and only half of things are dick jokes. That was like God's early work. He was teenage God. He was way too obsessed. He's like, oh my, you know what I want you guys to do? I want you two to fight. You gotta kill all those people, then you can have their land. He was like a teenager playing Grand Theft Auto or Rome Total War. Just kill everyone, and then you can have everything. And that's yours.
That's what it was like back then. It's just like, if you kill whoever you want, you technically own everything.
Yeah. And then New Testament God like grew up a little bit, had his first kid, mellowed out. He was a little cooler dude.
What's wrong?
Pull up the camera a little bit.
Pull up the camera?
Yeah, facing you. The one that's facing you.
What do you mean pull it up?
Yeah.
There we go.
Much better.
You could have told us that a long time ago. Anyway, since we're interrupting the podcast, can you give me a little bit? You want a bottle of water now?
Yeah, sure, I'll have some water.
There's a bottle of water in the freezer. Can you get that?
Sure.
This following break not brought to you by Blue Apron. Blue Apron, save 15% off your daily groceries by having someone else tell you what to eat and shipping it to your door. That's actually more expensive than if you just made it yourself. Blue Apron, no promo code. Don't go to their website. They don't sponsor this.
They don't sponsor
I want to do a podcast where it's just a horrific podcast, and then I tell the people who aren't sponsoring, and then I convince them to pay me money to not say their names.
Like a little reverse psychology.
Yeah, I want to do an Aristocrats podcast.
Here's some money. Just stop mentioning us. Do you listen to any podcasts?
I really should. I have so many long drives. I usually pull up some Netflix shows. There's one I listen to. I'm a big fan of science and facts. And if you want to, I'm one of the few people that will change their viewpoints if you give me a fact-based reasoned argument. I've changed my mind on things. I used to be against against the firing squad for death penalty. Till a friend who's one of the committees for the TEDx Salt Lake City had some wonderful information. I was like, oh my God, that's actually, how is it more humane that we shoot someone a bunch of times than lethal injection? But so there's a podcast called Skeptoid that they have like a bibliographical reference so you can see all of the things that they're talking about and all of the cited sources at the end of it, and then it goes everything from debunking alien visits and Bigfoot all the way to anti-vaxxers and MLMs and like Mary Kay and all that shit. So they cover a different topic every week, and it's all just fact-based reasoning of, hey, listen, we might not know what that sound in Cuba was exactly, but we can tell you it wasn't sonic weapons because the brown noise doesn't exist, XYZ, and then it goes through all the science behind it. So that's, I'm a little bit of I'm a full nerd. I am such a nerd.
There's no problem with that. I mean, that's probably why your comedy can be so vast. Because you have so much information. You have so many things.
I know all the facts about dick jokes. I know. I have looked at.
I'm pretty sure there's some new ones coming out pretty soon.
If I'll be forefronting that research. Seen all the Kinsley research, all the.
I did hear you mentioned a lot of TED Talks. Do you go to those a lot, or do you watch those on something?
Yeah, so you can watch TED.com, TED. You can watch all of them online for free. I wish I could go to the actual TED conference. The main TED conference, like the tickets are like $10,000.
What? For a TED Talk?
Yeah, for the actual main TED conference. It's insanely expensive. So I did TEDx Salt Lake City. TEDx is a license, and different people can produce their own TEDx's across the nation. So sometimes you'll have people that will produce them, and it'll be like in the back of a library, and they'll film it on like a webcam, and the content can be questionable as far as how great it is. But the one I did, TEDx Salt Lake City, it's done in Kingsbury Hall, which is University of Utah. Beautiful 2,000 seat theater. Like you have to run through with a speaking panel and do multiple drafts. So it's really one of the best TEDx's I would say that there is, hands down. And you can watch you can watch it on the TEDx YouTube and also on the webpage. But the entirety behind TED is it's technology, entertainment, and design. So you'll get.
That's what TED stands for.
Yeah. So you'll get everything from a child in Africa who invented at like 10 years old, invented a system that actually keeps lions from attacking the herds by having blinking lights. That's an actual talk. This kid figured out how to not only save the lions' lives because they're not being murdered anymore, but also it saves them having to have a night watchman at 10 years old. All the way to entertainment, guys like James Veach, who responds to spam emails. You might have seen his TED Talks where he's literally just talking about responses he gives to like the Nigerian scammers, and it is hilarious.
Oh,
yeah. Lana saw that one time, and we watched it together. How he like pretty much trolls them.
Yeah, and so like it has stuff like that. This wonderful entertainment, and then there's design all the way from smart design for new cities to just plain old artists. I don't want to say plain old, but artists in the way that they will end up building these beautiful mechanical and practical things, or designing like city layouts and how you figure out how to build a city. Because we don't really think about that because we kind of just built cities about where they currently existed, but sometimes we're going into new areas and we're like, we're going to have a city there now. How do we make this so that people don't get stuck in traffic all day?
Yeah.
So it's wonderful. You get experts all across the board in pretty much every topic you can imagine, and they're giving for the main TED, the ones that end up on TED.com, a very refined and definitive vision and concise. They're usually like 7 to 14 minutes, so they're not that long to watch, and you can get some really great knowledge from some top experts in the field.
TED Talks, those are like they haven't been around too long. Like they're really more like a mid to later 2000s thing, right?
Yeah, so a lot of the stuff that went online so TED technically has been around since I think it was late 80s or early 90s when it was founded, but it was very small back then, but it was taken over by the now current head in the early 2000s, and he really revamped it. It's now gone online, and they've really grown up a lot. You can watch some of the first year stuff, and it's a little rougher, I would say, in the production, the way they did things. But now it's very defined. It's very iconic. They have, I think, the TEDx YouTube is now like over 2 billion views, so it's big. The main TED Talks, a lot of those will get just one talk alone will get anywhere between 1 to 50 million views on it. So it's big now.
Yeah, it's almost like a form of what was that like when in the Roman days when they used to all get into a room and they just hear
the Roman Forum?
Yeah, it's almost like that, huh?
Yeah, kind of. It's basically an online version of the forum with some of the best and brightest minds. I mean, the people that are one of the fellow speakers at TED at Salt Lake City, he's finishing up 3 PhDs at once while running a nonprofit to get medical supplies to disadvantaged countries. So like that's the sort of people they have coming in. So whenever it's weird when you're the entertainer in the room with these really smart, brilliant people, where you're like, they're like, oh, what's your talk on? Oh, I'm and they're like, oh, I'm doing what I do is I work with particle colliders, and like CERN particle collider, and we're studying spider nano silk technology, and the way that we can redefine the fabrics. And then they get to me and they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, sometimes I get sad and tell jokes. So the people they have very brilliant people, and then occasionally you just have a smart ass like me that will do the entertainment side.
Well, I mean, you gotta have a mix of both worlds, right? So.
Yeah, it's a good way to mix it up when you have there's a lot of very serious discussions, and not the comedy discussions aren't serious, but it's kind of that little bit of levity in between all of the more traditional or classic, like the spider silk nanotechnology was a real talk that was given at the TEDx Salt Lake City 2018, which that was my favorite one.
What was it again? Spider silk?
Spider silk nanotechnology.
I've heard about that because they're like trying to figure out. Is that the word? They're trying to figure out how to
basically replicate it. Yeah, to be able to replicate the structure. So because it's so strong, like when you think about Spider-Man, and the person I was talking to, the woman who's doing this, she literally is trying to get them to let her put an actual spider, in the particle collider in CERN, Switzerland, the giant,
the giant
Large Hadron Collider. Right now she's talking to them to try to get them to post. That is real Spider-Man. That was why I was so excited, because Spider-Man was my favorite super. I'm like, you're going to do, okay. I called first dibs on letting that spider bite me.
Called first dibs?
I called first dibs. But she's a total badass. She's like this little 5 foot tall Indian woman who's just brilliant and not who you'd expect to be being like, yeah, I'm putting spiders in this. Like just walking down the street, you wouldn't be like, that's the one. That she literally had to learn how to coax black widows to sleep with her hand.
Yeah.
So she literally will.
What do you mean to sleep? They go to bed?
So yeah, she calms them down, and she literally just like will have black widows in her hand, is like petting black widows, and then puts them in a particle collider. And like that's not who you'd expect just walking down the street.
Well, I mean, I feel like it'd have to be a woman to black spiders, black widow spiders. If it was a guy in the spider, it'd be like, I didn't want you to touch me.
Yeah.
I didn't consent, bite.
Yeah. But I'm like, one of my biggest fears is spiders. So I'm like, this is the most badass person. Is like super intelligent, cool, and is trying to make live Spider-Man. And I get to talk to this person because I tell jokes about suicide. That doesn't feel like it's an equal trade in our conversation to me, where it's like
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, no, like, you have so much knowledge, and I am in Fort Worth, Texas next
I
week.
joke around about this, the serious problem we have, and I make it funny.
Yeah. And you're trying to solve a lot of real world issues.
How do we? It's like I've never heard that the spider that she's trying to get a spider in that thing.
Yeah.
So why are they so against to letting her do that? I mean, it's just a spider.
Yeah, I think it's because like the Large Hadron Collider is like a multi-billion-dollar project, and they're so finely tuned, and they have also there's so many people that want to use those large colliders for different things that you kind of got to get a time slot in there, and then on top of it, the rough chance that the spider screws up a billion-dollar machine, like they don't.
Oh, okay, I see.
So first of all, she has to convince them to get a time slot, and then she has to convince them that everything's going to go fine, nothing's going to go wrong. So it's a big. I should really follow up with her and see if she's done it, because I need that. I need spider powers.
Like a GoFundMe or something.
Yeah. A GoFundMe. Can we raise $1 billion for a new particle collider? If you can donate just $5, okay, for the $5 pledge, we give you a T-shirt.
Yeah.
With a $100 million pledge, you get your own spider.
Oh, I was gonna ask you, but we talked about so much stuff already. But Spider.
Yeah.
What do you think about? Did you? You said Spider-Man's your favorite super. Did you watch the latest Spider-Man movie?
Oh yeah, no, I've watched all the Spider-Man movies. Unfortunately, I can't afford comic books, or else I would have kept up to date. But I've read all the OG Spider-Man up through like the anthologies. So.
Oh wow, you're really into it then.
Oh yeah, no, I used to. They used to have old anthology books where it would be like 5 years of comics, and I could check them out from the library. And so I've read all of the original DC, Marvel, anything that was in those anthologies. I've read it, but my knowledge like ends up stopping then in the late '80s, because they didn't have those in my library and I didn't have cash. So I'm like, oh man, we have Black Spider-Man, but I don't know his full backstory. So like, I know that Miles Morales exists in Spider-Verse. Obviously, we have alt realities, and I had to watch it, especially just because John Mulaney is Spider-Ham, which is one of the greatest Spider-Man offshoots ever. Is Spider-Man as a pig, voiced by John Mulaney, wonderful comedian.
Well, the reason why I ask is if you watched this last Spider-Man, I know this sucks that Sony and Marvel have not come to an agreement, and they might not fall into part, which sucks because Sony. Obviously, they tried to do the Spider-Man reboot. I actually like the reboot, the one with Garfield.
Yeah, Andrew Garfield.
I actually like that one.
Yeah, they were better than the Tobey Maguire
ones. A lot
ones.
of people didn't like it, but I was like, it's what happened in the comic books in a sense. Green Goblin killed
Gwen Stacy, which
tore Spider-Man apart, but then we didn't get to see afterwards him rebuilding himself as a superhero again. But I did like those. The Tobey Maguire ones, like the first two were cool. Then they started kind of fading off, and the third one was horrible. Yeah.
They tried to shove too many villains into one movie, so you didn't get an
without
appropriate amount of time.
Without any good backstory.
Yeah.
But I did like in this the latest one, Far From Home. They kind of made it seem like Spider-Man was kind of losing his senses a little bit, because you know how he had to retrain himself how to at the end of the movie. By the way, this is spoilers. If you haven't seen it by now, fuck you guys.
It's been over 8 weeks. It's almost on Blu-ray.
How he had to pretty much go, close his eyes and just let himself go to his spider senses. And to me, I saw that as an intro to when he starts losing his powers and he turns into Man Spider. which would have been amazing if they could have gone that route.
I don't know if they go that route because of the way that they've been approaching it with Marvel, which that Man Spider, and especially when we get into more of the Spider-Verse, I feel like that's going to be explored by Sony in the cartoon series or the animated series that they did, like Into the Spider-Verse, where we could get Man Spider and explore deeply into the web that connects all the different multiverses and the different Spider-Man together. But that's because it's very. I almost feel like Man Spider would be a little bit too graphically visual for what Marvel likes doing.
Yeah, it'd be pretty intense. But they did come out with a good Venom movie.
Yeah, well, that was Sony though. That was not Marvel. Wasn't involved at all in that. And
Nicky Long.
Although I will say Tom Holland is the best. He's my Spider-Man forever. I heart him 3000.
He's a very good Spider-Man. He's still young.
He's a good Spider-Man and a perfect Peter Parker.
Yeah, he's a good Peter Parker. Not too nerdy, but still kind of awkward, but not like retardedly awkward. Oh, I shouldn't say that.
Yeah.
That's one of the rules.
Is that on the?
Yeah,
that's not one of the words.
I've
already broken.
I think it's on there. I'm not sure. Anyway, so it's cool. I'm not sure which way they're gonna go. I do know that what's his name playing Carnage is great. He is perfect for that. What's his name? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I'm still because I wasn't a fan of the Venom movie myself.
It was okay. I liked certain parts of it. I didn't like how some parts were kind of too low to humor.
I honestly wish they would have be able to have the Marvel tie-ins. We could have gotten the Spider-Man based backstory of Eddie Brock. I was really hoping with Infinity War coming out that we were going to get the Venom origin story that was when Spider-Man was involved in the Infinity Wars and he was on the alternate planet when he got the suit, and it became one of the alternate origins for Venom versus the original Eddie Brock, the J. Jonah Jameson's son.
Yeah, Crash. Yeah. And that's what happened in the movie, actually.
Yeah, which I would have loved to have had more of where we could have had J. Jonah involved and Peter involved, but since we had to
with the Venom movie,
we had to cut them out since they're part of Marvel's IP. Yeah. Big companies just screw up my childhood so much. They just for money too. Just for money. Why would you remake The Lion King? That's.
Oh yeah, yeah they did. I didn't watch the remake of The Lion King. I probably won't go into it either.
But yeah, the Venom. I would have loved. I really wish Marvel would actually had the Venom IP because I liked having an R-rated Venom, but I would have probably loved the direction that Marvel has kind of fine-tuned superhero movies enough that I think they could have, if they could have tapped into the darker side, if you could have had someone like more of a James Gunn or kind of a bit of an alt director going in and handling Venom, I feel like if they would have had the right director at the helm, they could have done a good dark Venom and still had it. Sony for me was just a little bit off enough, and some people hate me for this. I do not like Tom Hardy as Eddie Brock. He's not my Eddie Brock. Don't get me wrong.
He's a little small. He's a little small.
It's not as bad as Spider-Man 3. Having Topher Grace as Eddie Brock.
That's his name, Topher Grace.
Yeah, Topher Grace, the guy from that 70s show.
Was stupid. When he became Venom, when he got the suit, why all of a sudden his teeth all jacked up? Made no sense at all. His teeth were like all just jagged.
Yeah, there was so many. I don't know what happened to Raimi there, but
I don't know either.
I would love to. Someone aside from Tom Hardy. It's too late to recast an entire Venom movie, and there's a reason that he had.
I like Tom Hardy as an actor, though. He's a great actor.
Yeah, no. Mad Max Fury Road was fantastic with him in there.
Mad Max was amazing. That was a great movie. Which is hard to remake that movie and make it really good because fucking Mel Gibson blew it out of the park when he made it.
And I almost say that Fury Road was better in so many ways, especially since they stayed with practical effects. Mm-hmm. So you could have a movie that will remain timeless, and you won't watch 20 years from now and be like, "Oh man, that's such horrible. That doesn't look good anymore."
It was pretty much a movie about incest, wasn't it? Because the guy was just banging all the chicks, and all those guys were just all his kids in a way. Wasn't that what's going on? I don't know. It was just like
I don't know what you're reading into that movie or what your personal life is like. I didn't assume it was it. I assumed that they were like the last remaining women. I didn't think they were all his daughters.
I don't know if they're his daughters, but I'm pretty sure that all those that he was banging all of them, they have all these kids.
I thought it was,
And when the kids came out normal, he was like, yeah, yeah. And when they came out deformed, throw them away.
yeah, that's not incest. Just having that's more like that's more like a harem. That's where you have it's more like a Negan setup. Where not incest. Where you collect all of them. It's like then they're like Pokemon, and you're like I choose you tonight, and then when they don't perform well, then you just send them to the.
I'm pretty sure some of them might have been his daughters. I mean, after the older ladies passed away.
Oh, I hope not. I would hope not. But who am I to judge? I haven't lived through an apocalypse and been a water baron. I don't know what the future is like. I probably wouldn't have sex with my daughters, but
No.
that's. I don't know. I don't want to get on my moral high horse and proclaim things. I'm going to tell everyone.
Who are we to judge Adam and Eve?
I'm going to tell everyone out there on the internet, don't have sex with your kids. But I'm taking a bold stance here. Taking a bold stance. Don't have sex with your children. You heard it here first.
Be careful. The social media people might come after you for saying that.
I'm sure.
There's always somebody out there who gets mad about point of view.
There's an incest group, a pro-incest group on Facebook. Don't ask me. Actually, okay, I should tell you why I know. I should tell you why. It's not. It's not my fault. My girlfriend joined it as a joke. And then one time she commented something that was not anti-incest in there. It wasn't like pro-incest, it just wasn't anti. And so a bunch of people started thinking that she was in the group. They thought she was like friends with them or whatever, and they started reaching out to her.
Group, why wouldn't you be friends with them?
Sometimes you join groups as like a trolling thing and for fun, and then they think you're actually one of them. And so she kept telling me about all the updates in the incest group and about all their new scientific research studies. And then once again, I'm a fact-based person. It turns out cousin incest is not bad as long as you don't keep doing it. And so now I've had to change my mind on fact-based cousin incest.
As long as you don't keep doing it. So you're saying like, okay, me and my cousin can hook up. But later down the line, that
you gotta
child
keep
and another cousin shouldn't be hooking up.
Yeah, eventually.
So who's supposed to keep track of the chart, though, man?
We've got 23andMe now, so apparently now just like take a DNA test before you get married. But still don't sleep with your kids. That's a power dynamic issue, no matter what. Never do that. Don't have sex. But if you got a hot cousin, use a condom. I don't know if that's. I got weird messages for your people. That's. According to science. According to science, vaccinate your children.
What are you telling these people? You've been swayed to that side, huh?
Science! It was science was what swayed me. Apparently it's like there's one disease that has a 3% higher occurrence rate if you have children with your cousins. But by the way, I haven't slept with any of my cousins. This is just purely hypothetical. This is imaginary world. But there's probably only like a few diseases that are worse among genetic lines. And so the incest people are big on that statistic, and I'm like, you guys got peer-reviewed research. I'm not going to argue with you. You guys just don't sleep with anyone in the wrong power dynamic and have fun, do whatever, don't harm people. But if you and your cousin are into each other, like, use a condom. I don't know.
What if one of your cousins heard it was like, I got a chance now with Collin. I've been waiting for that. What would you do about that?
I mean, I got some good-looking cousins. I don't know.
Completely out the window.
We don't. I'm not close with most of my family.
Lonnie, you got anything to say about that?
I didn't even know that. She's not your cousin, right? Maybe you're like, we finally found an advocate for our cause. Who would have known? Who would have known we would find the one guy who knows some of the incest statistics, but also doesn't sleep with cousins?
Oh man. Okay, I did want to ask you, and let me see if I can figure this out. Okay, you say you're half black, half what?
Half white.
Half white.
Yes.
I want to guess which parents which. Judging by your looks, I would say your mom is the half, is the black person.
That is correct.
It is correct?
That's yeah.
Oh!
Mom's the black one.
Oh! Cha-cha-cha!
So I got to be raised in a poor black household.
Oh.
Even though my parents got divorced, and I still got the worst. Like most people, They like they have the black dad and the white mom, and their parents get divorced, and they're like, oh, I'm living in white culture. Nope, I was still in black culture. Well, not half.
Wait, okay, so I said your mom was the black, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here's the good thing about that. If your mom was not the good, let me rephrase that. Here's the difference.
Do it without using any racial slurs. It's one of the words.
If your mom would have been the white lady with a black child, she would have had no idea how to fix your hair while you were growing up.
That can be a problem. That, yeah. You know, that is an actual legitimate issue with, so...
I don't know, just
there,
flip it around, regular hair gel or something.
You've got YouTube and all that stuff now, but it is a real problem that actually faces, not for me, clearly. I've got a friend, an old buddy he's black from southern Texas, Black Bone Hampton, and I used to open for him, and he would get on stage and he'd give me shit. He'd be like, Collin, you ain't black. How much your mama hates your daddy? She tell you your daddy black. You can't comb black hair like that. Which is great, because he met my mom, and he's like, are you okay with me saying it? I'm like, yeah, I don't give a shit.
That's cool.
Yeah, and so he knew my mom was a black woman. It was, yeah, and it is, because my hair, I got the white hair, which is so handy so many times where I can just be like, fixed.
Yeah, and you do give off that look of where it's hard to like, what are you?
Yeah, no, both me and airport security know that well. Yeah, screenings aren't random. Screenings are not random. Some of them are my fault, though. That was a couple of them.
Yeah, what are you gonna do?
Well, I was traveling. I was doing some shows over in Europe a couple years ago, and I was flying an airline over there called Spirit Airline. Oh, not Spirit Airline. It's a Scottish Airlines. It's Ryanair, which I wish it was Spirit Airlines. Like, Ryanair makes Spirit Airlines look like NASA. That is how horrible. There's such Ryanair.
Ryanair? Well, yeah, if it's named after a person.
It
sounds like it's
after a Scottish dude. I got a ticket from France to Romania for 11 euros. That's $12. That is how cheap the airline is.
How long of a flight?
That's like
how long of a flight
yeah.
is $12?
Yeah,
It's amazing.
exactly. Yeah, and it's like
say, what is it, like 2 hours? Doesn't matter actually. Now that I think about it,
it's a 4-hour flight. Yeah, $12. And they will sell you lottery tickets on the plane. Yeah. They sell lottery tickets on the plane. That's how.
Wait a minute, lottery tickets?
They have lottery tickets. They have because they're trying to make up the money. Like the stewardesses do like a little QVC in the middle of the flight, and their entire pitch to you to sell you this crap is that you're over. They're like, okay, we're currently over international waters, so everything is duty free. It's like none of the laws from any other countries apply, so you don't have to pay taxes. It's pirate laws in the air is like their entire pitch. I'm like, if we don't have laws, there's a baby a few rows up. Can I take care of this, like, sort of thing? They didn't like that. I was gonna give it some alcohol. It was a Scottish airline. I figured the baby passed out. It'd be fine. They didn't agree to that. But so yeah, they sell lottery tickets. One of the things that they sell for the Ryanair lottery. And I think that's the worst thing ever, because when I'm 30,000 miles in the air, that's not when I want to start feeling unlucky. Like, I don't want to be, like, flying and be like, okay, we got airplane, skull and crossbones, we're going down. Like, it's so bad. So that's how cheap the airline is. And so one of the things they do is they weigh your bag before you get on your carry-on. They will weigh it, and if it's over 20 pounds, then they'll charge you extra. And I was over there for 2 months, and I was packing everything in my backpack, so I don't have to pay extra baggage fees. I'm a cheap son of a bitch. And so I went online and I read some instructions of how to avoid paying the baggage fees. With heavy bags, what you do is you buy a travel vest. Because they don't weigh you, they weigh the bags, but not you, which is good for America. You buy a travel vest, and then you put all your heavy things in the travel vest. And then you wear that on the plane, and then you take it off and you put it in the bag. So that way your bag weighs less when you go through, but later you don't have to wear the entire thing. So I forgot that I look.
They don't care, like, when you go to the X-rays what you have on.
So I forgot that I look like I do. I look like I don't look black. I look like I'm from a country where I've only seen my mom through a slit in her, you know. And so I have purchased a black vest, and I have put all of my heaviest things on it, which is my electronics. It has all of my cables running into my vest. Because in my mind, I'm half black. So I'm taking the vest off and I'm putting it through the conveyor belt, and they're just seeing a vest with wires, and I don't. I don't know if you've ever had the full search before, the really in-depth search. That is how I found out I have colorectal cancer. Is how detailed it was, because it was, and
Wait,
I
you
looked.
don't have cancer, dude. You're
Well, I don't have it. I found it out, but they searched far enough up me that
Yeah.
they could tell that whether or not I did have it. Because it was
Okay.
it was like full-on panic, red alert. And so I learned after that.
Yeah.
I put different things in my vest instead. After that, I didn't put the wires in there.
Oh, my goodness.
But when I was over in France, I picked up some LED light bulbs because I do photography, and I grabbed some quick LED light bulbs for shoots.
Mhm.
And I didn't realize that apparently LEDs show up on an X-ray exactly like C4. And so I had light bulbs in my bag when I was in France. And what's nice is when the French do an in-depth cavity search, they're so much more gentle. They're very gentle lovers. They got two
They
people
still
involved
give you
in
a
it.
cavity search, even
It's-
though you're like their light bulbs.
It shows up. They just like they see me, and I still had the vest. It just wasn't filled with wires. But then you've got C4 looking things going through. So like I said, not all of the random screenings were their fault. Some of them were my fault, and that's kids don't fly Ryanair or just pay for the baggage. Just pay. If you're brown, don't buy travel vests. That's the definition of white privilege is being able to wear a travel vest through an airport.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's somebody out there though that like is gonna hear this and be like, oh, that's what I gotta do for a cavity search. Because there's some kinky motherfuckers out there. They're gonna be glad to get
I mean,
searched like
you
that.
could
Yeah,
just-
I dig in deeper.
You could just pay a prostitute to do that. That's a lot cheaper.
Yeah, but you never. But nowadays, you never know if they're gonna drug you and steal all your money.
Oh no, you go to you go to one of the good ones. If you're traveling already to Europe, go to one of the brothels there. They have many fine
Oh yeah.
Maybe fine licensed brothels in some of those countries.
So, so you mentioned that you do a lot of photography. You do a lot. I read your bio. You do a lot of various
All
things.
out there. Yeah, well, as a comic, like you've got 1 hour of work a day, so
Yeah.
you got to fill the rest of the time.
So what all? Let's go. What all do you do? What are your other interests?
So I do stand-up professionally. I tour around the country. You can see my website, comiccollin with 2Ls.com. Current tour is suicidenote.me. So I've got 2 different tours. One's a normal stand-up tour. One's the dark show with all the suicide, child molestation jokes. Jokes about being molested as a child. I got to clarify that. So
Yeah,
all
it's
those
like-
are mostly in the other show, in the Suicide Note show. When I'm home, usually for a week off, I work with Quickwit's Improv. I've been doing improvisational comedy for 15 years, going on 15 years. And then I'm working on a new photography set that is a different take on boudoir called Laugh-Doir that I'm reworking that portfolio. And so that's kind of a fun offshoot. It's a side hobby. I do so many other things that kind of takes a back alley. I don't really do a lot with that. I host a web series called Ingression. So if you guys know Pokemon Go, Niantic's original project was called Ingress, and I made a tutorial series for that. I actually ended up getting hired on as Niantic's live broadcaster when they were experimenting with live esports coverage back in 2016 because I know the mechanics in the game so well that I've got a tutorial series on that. And
That's amazing.
yeah, it's fun. Ingress is a little bit more niche versus Pokemon Go. So like the series I have, I mean we're over 1 million views, but it's not as large as Pokemon Go. Granted, when I'm not doing that, you can find me crying alone in the shower because my girlfriend's at work and I'm stuck with her goddamn cat all day, and he makes me cry.
What do you see?
Yeah, he's a bully. His name's Dorian, which
I just picture that cat like peeking through the door with a knife and like,
Yeah.
you gotta come out of here sometime, man.
he's a black cat. He'd shoot me.
Oh.
I can say that. I'm half black. We discussed this
and
earlier.
you know with that,
Yeah.
he's probably high on crack half the time.
Yeah, no, it's catnip. He's freebasing catnip in the back. He's just doing catnip and be like, Chappelle's right. But yeah, because his name's Dorian, I couldn't take this hurricane seriously. Hurricane Dorian's been hitting places. I just imagine my girlfriend's cat going in and fucking shit up.
Just tearing
Yeah,
everything up.
just running around in circles really
You know what's
fast.
funny though, Dorian, I was listening to Bill Burr on his podcast, and he was looking into Dorian, the meaning of the name. It's the first gender neutral named Hurricane, I think. And he was like, it's
Who's
like,
naming their girls Dorian? I've never heard a girl named Dorian. Is
I
that?
don't either. But I don't know. He researched it. Said it was like a Roman gender neutral name. It's like, oh, they've gotten to where we can't even name our hurricanes names names anymore. Today's society.
You gotta be politically correct, everyone.
I mean, I know you do. Obviously, doing 12 years in comedy. 12 years, right?
Yeah.
What do you think of like the culture as far as from when you first started to where we are now? Like, I know it's changed a lot.
Yeah, there's definitely been a shift. So it also depends on where you're performing. So I do a lot of shows in middle of nowhere. Like there's hey, we need someone in Yankton, South Dakota, to perform at a comedy club that's actually a dance place that is also a bowling alley and is also a bar and is also a casino. I'll do those shows because I'm famous. I wish. So it still does also depend on where you're at. So when I'm doing a city like Portland, which is definitely, that's where I was raised and is definitely more progressive, is going to be a little bit different of an attitude there versus the Midwest in a small town that's heavily Republican is obviously going to be less worried about it. But there has definitely been a shift. One of the weirdest things, and the reason I did the talk at TEDx Salt Lake City is because I have a show where I'm the Suicide Note show. I am talking about my own experience, my own life, these things that happened to me. What led to me eventually trying to commit suicide a few times. And it was weird to watch people get offended about me talking about my own life. And it's like, no, this is me sharing my experience. We see all these different art forms where people explore their trauma, but for some reason, if a comedian feels the most comfortable expressing it in their art form, people get offended at them talking about themselves, which is very bizarre. So there has been a shift. I think, unfortunately, we're swinging in a pendulum. I wish the pendulum would have stopped in the middle, because we went from being too insensitive on a lot of areas to being overly sensitive on a lot of areas, and I'm afraid that we're going to end up shifting back too far in the other direction. I would like the talk was hopefully trying to center us more towards the middle, because there are things that do need to be taken into account when you're talking about people. I think it is important to remember that there's a lot of people who've experienced things that are different than you, and that although we as comedians, we want to kind of have it both ways. We want to say that jokes are just jokes and they're meaningless, but also we say that comedians can change the world because words are powerful. We can't have it both ways. We do need to find a medium where we understand that words can hurt people, but also people need to understand that if they're coming to a comedy club, if they're coming to an area that you're the one who's the performer, there's the entirety of safe spaces, and that is your safe space. That's what's been designated. You're not walking into their house. They're coming into your house. My rule is always, whenever I do shows, I have the Suicide Note show. Clearly, I can do dark jokes. The Suicide Note show is built in a way that it is not technically offensive. If you want to be offended at it, you can find so many things to be offended at. But I'm talking about my own life and what happened to me. But I've had a lot of mental health charities have actually reached out to me, and I've done shows for them because they recognize that someone talking about their own trauma in an alternative way can be positive.
Yeah, because not to interrupt, but
Yeah.
it's like how it's basic human development. It's like one of the best ways to deal with a traumatic situation, when you take it, can make talk about it and then make it seem, make your own spin on making it kind of funny, even though it wasn't funny at the time. You look back at it and be like, yeah, I've changed, I've learned so much from then, but you still can give people an introspect on what your life was when that was happening in a positive way.
Yeah.
And
it allows you to sort your pain through the prism of humor, and Oprah talks about empowerment. It's essentially empowerment. It's taking that negative and turning it into a positive, so that no longer is it controlling you, you get to control it.
yeah.
Which is the way that you...
But it's weird, it's strange that people would get upset with that, because it's your own personal thing. How are you supposed to change what actually you went through? You can't change that.
Precisely, yeah.
But they get mad at you because just because you went through it and you can have fun because you went through it. That's not right. No, that's
Yeah, and that's where we've had the overcorrection. The thing that really hit me when I was writing the talk was there was an interview with Vice News, and they were talking to college comedy bookers, and some of the bookers they were talking to at colleges are notoriously strict for we don't want anyone to be offended, and especially that entire thing of colleges are over PC these days. There is, I would definitely agree, there's too much of a bit of an over sheltering going on, at least to the students. And one of the things that one of the bookers said was, even if a woman is talking about her own experience of being sexually assaulted on stage, we're not going to allow that. And this was happening peak Me Too, which is really weird to me to have that dynamic where generally the liberal philosophy and progressive philosophy is we want to support these people who are victims, we want you to be heard, we want you to be able to finally talk and feel safe expressing it, but then also say, no, you can't talk about it if it's in comedy. We're not going to allow you to do that. So it was this weird mix of watching someone who's probably very pro Me Too at the same time saying that it would shut down someone for discussing their own sexual assault because it was the art form they're most comfortable with. So that was really a moment for me where I was like, I know we've swung too far. That's when I was like, we've gone too far on the pendulum. We need to center it back where we can appreciate that you don't want to necessarily punch down with your comedy. Usually better comedy writing is punching up anyways, for the most part. But we don't want to punch down, so we want to take into account that people have been harmed by things, and to not just directly 100% mock that in a way that's serious and hurting them. But we also need to remember, hey, there are elements of it. This is humor. This is putting a positive on a negative, and is not discussing something, a specific topic or a word. Doesn't have to be negative. There's a recent study that was done that showed providing trigger warnings actually turns out to be more harmful to people than not providing them, which is bizarre to me. I'm once again a database person, so I used to provide a trigger warning before my show. I stopped doing that because of the fact that it turns out you actually hurt people who've been traumatized more by providing trigger warnings than by not.
You think it's like a psychological thing where like if you had, like you said, a trigger warning where they get that in their head, they're like, something's gonna happen that I'm gonna get upset about, and they're just like through the whole show they're like waiting for it to happen, and when it happens, like even way harder because they're kind of already expecting it.
Yeah, and that's kind of what the study found was, unfortunately it is a pushing in the person who's been traumatized mind the aspect of being a victim more than encouraging and empowerment, because they focus so much on the side of how they were a victim of whatever horrible trauma occurred, and they end up getting focused on that piece versus focusing on the way to be able to try to overcome it. And people have to overcome things on their own time scales and their own time frames, so you don't want to force someone to deal with something too soon, but it ended up turning out on a base level was actually not encouraging them to be able to move forward. It was actually setting them backwards instead.
Yeah. Did you watch by any chance the Dave Chappelle special?
Sticks and Stones? Yeah. No, I was up on that route.
The very end, all the way to the very end?
Yeah, you did a commentary with that, and it was interestingly, Daphne, the person who he speaks about, I saw some of her comments because she was over on Reddit on some comment threads on that, and over on Facebook. So it was kind of interesting to see her, that she is a real person, not just from the photos, but also to see her actual quick comments on it online as well.
You know her?
No, I don't know her, but she was commenting on Reddit. She herself was actually commenting on Reddit and commenting on some Facebook threads I saw. So I haven't met her, I haven't seen her, but it's one of those things where people will sometimes be like, oh, well, this is just a foil. It's not an actual person. He made this up to justify what he's doing.
Oh yeah.
The trans woman. But she's real. She exists. That photograph is really a real person, and that real person was sharing their real follow-up thoughts on it, which is you don't usually get to see that in comedy, where you see the person who they're talked about later on being able to respond, and not in just some sort of outraged way.
Yeah, that was really cool.
It actually provide context.
One thing that like I was gonna say, like when he was talking about how that lady walked out and she was crying and she was like, I was raped, and it's like, I'm sorry, it's not your fault, and he was like, but it's not my fault either.
Yeah, and that's
a good example of like somebody just hearing something get triggered all of a sudden and then walking out of the comedy club, and is sad that happened, but obviously she has not overcome that situation in herself.
Yeah.
So there's still traumatic effects that are happening to her, which I'm not saying like she needs to go see a therapist, but I mean, it would help if some people discuss things. I feel like that when a person does get more offended by something because they haven't fully been able to acknowledge it within themselves.
Well, one of the pieces I had to cut for the talk from time, but once again, go back to the comedy club is a safe space for the comedian. We're not coming into your house. You know, my personal rule is if I'm going over to someone else, if you're hiring me for something, if you come over to, if I go over to your house and you ask me to take off my shoes, I will do it. If you come over to my house and tell me, sorry, fuck you. No, but if you come over to my house and tell me I need to take off my shoes, like that would be crazy.
It would be.
And so, yeah. So you know, if you're coming over to someone's house, you know, you respect the rules. But the comedy club is a comedian's house. Unfortunately, with how many horrific things happen, we do need to fix the underlying issue. With how many horrific things happen, though, if you're in a crowd of 200 people. Statistically, I can tell you in Utah, I know it's 1 out of 5 children in Utah is abused. To this day is the current statistics that we're trying to fix that. But that means that if you're talking about your experience of being abused as a child, 20% of the audience statistically is going to have been abused. And odds are one of the people has not worked through it. Cutting off a public dialogue of a topic is not going to be useful. To save the one person who hasn't been able to work through it. Yeah, it's an unfortunate circumstance, but when they're coming into your house, I mean, ideally you're writing material that isn't punching down, that the context of it is not, you know, glorifying the abuser, it's not glorifying the aggressor, and it's just discussing it and ideally giving power to the person who had been victimized or attacked. But to completely cut it off, there's almost always in any large situation going to be someone who was a victim of whatever topic you're talking about. And so that's where I look at the context versus banning a topic. Because you're not, unfortunately, you're not going to, I would say statistically as horrific as it is discussing, and the reason I discuss sexual assault is not just because it's one of the major things, but because I was molested as a child for 6 years. Like, I'm technically a sexual assault survivor. It's very different. I would definitely say child molestation is very different from, you know, an adult woman being sexually assaulted. But there's a similar dynamic in the sense of losing power and having that taken away from you and having someone abuse you in that way. But, you know, odds are if I talk about that being molested on stage, there's going to be someone who is sexually assaulted because of how frequent it is, and because we haven't solved that issue. Hopefully we will. Unfortunately, probably not soon. There's going to be someone who probably within the last year or two has been sexually assaulted in the audience. Sometimes, if they're not ready to deal with it in a humorous way, that might hurt them. I know some comics that prefer to just avoid any topic that might potentially cause someone to get distracted from their show. I take the different approach where I want to hopefully use the humor and have the person go, hey, you know what, even if this isn't my exact situation, you know, maybe I can regain some control in what happened, and they need to do that on their own timetable when they're ready to, but hopefully at least they see that there's an alternative perspective where they could regain some power because they can't change the past. And there's a type of therapy commonly used with soldiers. It's called ACT, A-C-T, and it's acceptance and commitment therapy. Soldiers who have watched their buddies die and watched horrible things happen, they can't change that. So essentially what the main therapy that they use over at the VA is we can't change it, how do we accept what happened and kind of move on from that? And so that's kind of what the humor approach I use is it's the acceptance and, okay, this happened, we can't change it, we can try to change it, the culture so that it doesn't happen to anyone else, but I can't change what happened to me, so how do I accept that, move it on, and then discuss it publicly so it gets brought up. So we are discussing it, but also in a way that isn't just a complete sadness, that we can actually have a little positive twist on it.
It's like when those people who have who they'll write like books and whatnot about how the tragedy that they went through, and you got that way of discussing it.
Yeah.
You know, the more serious and deep and kind of dark, and then you kind of go through it and you kind of feel like fucking human race is a piece of shit. Or you can go the opposite way, like the way you're trying to. You try and bring it up, enlighten it, show that there's a positive thing at the end, and that you can, you know, I guess make you laugh, make jokes about it, but make it not seem so down.
Yeah.
Some people, and people need that. Some people want the darker side. Some people want the lighter side. It's just, I guess it's hard to let people know what style of comic you are. Maybe they need to do a little research before they go see your shows.
That's the ideal.
But look, I think like they should just give you a chance because it is a hard topic to talk about, and the fact that you've been able to come through everything that you had to, and you can do it your way, is pretty fucking amazing.
And unfortunately, you do get enough. The reason I have 2 separate tours I do is because there are enough people who don't research what they're going to.
Yeah.
It's a very, I would say at least half of all audiences, half of all people in the audience have done 0 research. I mean, because a lot of comedy clubs, I use clubs in quotation marks as like one-nighters or things, or smaller clubs. They'll just be like a sign that says comedy this weekend or something like that, or come see the comedy show, and you know they might have a picture of the comedian up and maybe like a 1-paragraph bio, which bios are never great. It never really tells you much. It tells you what the person was on, but I know people who have a credit on Last Comic Standing, and their credit on Last Comic Standing was that they got mocked by the guys who were the judges, and that's it. But people don't. They just see Last Comic Standing like, oh, you must be good. Meanwhile, it was how they had the worst set possible.
I saw your bio and I started reading. I was just like, whoa! I started getting dizzy. How much shit? Like that's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Also, I have 2 different. So I sent you 2. There's the short bio and the long bio, because like usually they'll have one that's like 100 words less, and then one that's a longer one if they want a longer version. But yeah, so this, and the bios really don't tell you too much most of the time in the quick little 1-paragraph on there. People usually won't even watch a clip of the comedian. They might know the name, but unless the person's famous, which most comedians traveling around aren't famous enough, that you would just instinctively know their type of humor off the top of their head. And so the people will just show up, and to me it's the equivalent of showing up at a movie theater and being like, hey, just give me 1 ticket for anything. I have a good sense of theater. As long as it's good theater, I will enjoy it. And then being really angry that Quentin Tarantino is more violent than Finding Nemo. Because that's essentially what a lot of people will do when they show up at a comedy club. They're like, listen, I have a good sense of humor. As long as it's funny, I'll like it. So they just show up and they're like, just give me a ticket. And they don't bother doing any research. And then it's like, oh, it turns out that Bill Hicks is very different from Brian Regan. You know, Jerry Seinfeld and George Carlin have a wide gap between the 2 of them. And it's exactly the same as Quentin Tarantino and you know, like Finding Nemo, that huge divide.
It's like, it's exactly like the movie theater. Like if you go to see a movie, and let's just say they don't tell you what movie it is, you're just like, I'll just buy a ticket to any movie, it doesn't matter. And you go in there, and fucking you're walking into, what's that movie that Tarantino made with
Django Unchained?
Yeah, Django Unchained. And you're like, what the hell is this? Like,
and you can enjoy both. I mean, there's some people that enjoy both, but I also know that my mom, who's Jehovah's Witness and super religious and conservative, would not want to see that movie. And so there is a certain point where if someone's being brought in, the impetus, when an audience member walks out because they're like, oh, that was too dirty, I really feel like the impetus is on them because you have come to a mass group setting and you're the one that didn't do the research. The comedian can't research 100 individual audience members in advance because they don't know who's coming. But the website, usually most comedians will have a website and some clips you can watch online where you can get a sense of who they are and know what they're coming to. And there's a lot of people that will still just not bother even looking at a YouTube clip, which is, once again, very bizarre to me because you don't know who it is. All you know is it's broad comedy. But then you show up and they're like, oh, that's not my style of comedy. Sorry, that one is on you. And so that's why I have 2 different tours. I have one that's the Suicide Note tour where I make sure it's very specifically marketed. People know that they're showing up to a show called My Suicide Note. First of all, if you show up to that and you're like, oh, there's too many suicide jokes, you had a warning. Like, I don't know what you were expecting. Suicide Note show. And I deliberately do it on off nights where people normally wouldn't show up. So anyone that's coming is coming because they want to see that show. They're not just showing up for comedy. And then I do a normal hour stand up for any of your normal club dates where people are gonna just come to see comedy.
So in terms, you pretty much have two different sets, and you created both of those. How did you where did you start like where you're like, I need to start breaking stuff off, or did you like initially know, hey, I'm gonna want to start doing these on one section and start doing this other light stuff on a separate section, or did you like come to a point where you're like, I need to, where you had already done both of them kind of, and then you start separating slowly?
So the Suicide Note was not originally a planned show. I wrote an actual Suicide Note and published it in advance for attempts 2 through 5. And the problem is, as a comedian, you tend to write jokes in everything you're doing. Like even my Suicide Note, I was writing jokes in there. And I'm like, fuck, well, this is either going to become my actual Suicide Note, or maybe it'll become a show. One of the weird things is the Suicide Note show has enough material in it that I can just do on a normal stage. I usually do about half an hour of it and just slide it into my normal hour now. They were very different shows, but now I just love the dark jokes so much I'll slide them in. I just can't do the full narrative 90 minutes of walking everyone through, but I can still do the material about my ex getting a question mark on a pregnancy test. I can still do jokes about a different ex and how she doesn't like me doing material about her on stage. So there's a lot of different pieces that I can do. I can do the jokes about not liking blowjobs because my first one was a bad experience because I was 14, half black and flexible. So like, I can still do those Suicide Note jokes in a normal set.
What does flexibility have to do with anything? Did you get flipped up?
I sucked my own cock. I sucked my own cock. That's why it matters. That's why it was a bad experience.
It happens. Those kids in school that did it. And I was like, this guy.
Every guy tries.
There's this guy named Stoner. And it was a rumor that he could do stuff to himself. And I was like, hey, Stoner, is that true? He's like, yeah.
So it's about 1 in 200 men is able to do it. I was one of them, and so I can do jokes like that. That's part of the Suicide Note show. So I originally just wrote the Suicide Note, and then I decided I wanted to work it into a show, and so I split it off, and I figured out I knew that I couldn't just do it all. I couldn't just write it and do it because you kind of need to refine things in comedy. So I would start taking chunks of it, and I went back to doing the open mic scene. I hadn't done open mics for 8-9 years, and I went back to doing open mics so that I could test new material. I like Benjamin Buttoned the entire thing and was like, okay, well, I'm going to be doing this headline date, and then the other 4 days in between, I'm just going to stay in this city. I'm going to test at open mics. And so I would break it off, and I built everything so that it was like 3 to 7 minute sections I could actually do on a normal stage and test. The trick is having 90 minutes of dark jokes in a row. You do need people to be prepared for that. You can do a 3 to 7 minute set of dark jokes in the middle of a normal set, and it's fine. Yeah. But having 90 minutes in a row is a little rougher. So I built it. It's all material that you can do in a normal show, in a normal 5-minute set, and then you just market it so that people know they're coming to an entire 90-minute show of just very, very, very dark jokes, and then a light blowjob joke in the middle. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how that got built. And like I said, I toured separately. I premiered it, and the very first time I did it, I would basically stitch together all the pieces. There was a few small pieces I hadn't done before, because there's a few moments that don't have jokes. If you've seen any of Mike Birbiglia's specials that he has on Netflix, it's there's a few moments, and I very first before I premiered it, I'd written it all and it was almost all set to go. I swung out and I made sure to talk to Christopher Titus, who's kind of the king of a 90-minute special, and to ask him some things and to get a few quick pieces of advice from him. And he definitely 100%. There's always jokes. There's no 20 seconds that he doesn't have jokes going on. Birbiglia will have a little bit more dips, and so I have some of those dip sections, and you can't really test a 45-second dip on a 5-minute set. That's, as a comedian, you want to have a lot of jokes. So there's a few pieces I couldn't test, which were nerve-wracking to do it the first time, but they worked out fine. Now looking back, I don't know why I was nervous to not talk about my mom getting gang raped as a child and having that 45-second dip. I'm sure I could have. Yeah. That's, in advance, I'm like, oh, how am I going to make this funny? Which is a weird. But then I was able to figure out the way to address that was by addressing the fact that I can't make it funny. Like there is no. It's because once again going back to punching down or punching up, that's not my pain to joke about. And so the joke becomes how I can't joke about it, and it becomes my reflection of how that affects me and how finding that out affects me. It's not about my mom being gang raped, because that would be punching down. So that's once again the context of, I'm sure there's someone who's had a horrible experience like that in their life that might not have dealt with it, and so the context is not going after that or trying to make light of what happened to them. It's discussing my personal experience of how finding out that happened to my mom affected me, because that is, anytime you find something like that out, it is going to cause an effect on you, and then you can talk about your own effect and how it affected you, and that's where the joke comes in.
Okay. That is why you're a well-seasoned comic. And why I'm like still struggling on how to make this shows funny.
Yeah, that's how you discuss the. You guys have a rule written on your podcast, rules of don't say rape, which makes sense because as a newer comic, you usually deal with it very indelicately, and even as someone who was writing this show 10 years in, trying to figure out how to approach something like that in an appropriate way was difficult. But after enough years, enough time, sometimes you do it correctly. Sometimes you have the entire internet angry at you instead. So it's even experienced comics make mistakes.
I had a premise a bit that I had been working on. I did it at 2 different showcases, and it was about the Michael Jackson Netflix special that had came out. And the premise was that how I try to see the positive side of everything, and how some of them, became like really famous dancers or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one time it worked really well, but the next time I added a couple things. And I guess I made it too personal because I talked about how my experience of being molested as a child, and how I didn't get anything out of it except for a drug habit and alcoholism.
Mm-hmm.
And it did not do well with the crowd. I think it was too. I don't know if it was too interpersonal, and they just it just
became too real.
I think a lot of it's too real for them.
Part of that gets to delivery, part of that gets to figuring out how to build it into a set, and not sometimes you have to figure out how you can lead in, and a lot of times it's with a longer show you're like, okay, I know I'm going to slowly build down this path where we get darker and darker and darker, because if you just try to go from like a normal joke over to the child molestation joke, it does not work well. They're not expecting that, and unless you have that, unless that is your pattern, like Anthony Jeselnik can do that because that is his pattern and that's what he does. But your average comic, the people who are like, what the? Because one of the jokes I tell on the show was one I used to try to just throw into a set, and it didn't do well. But now in the show it does well because of where it's built in, and it's also kind of I've warned them we're building darker and darker and darker, and then we hit this. It's a really dark joke. And then I also get to then use that as, once again, commentary. Sometimes when people start going, oh, you can use that as commentary, like, listen, this is what we're in for. This is what we agreed to. Like, this is a dark show. Buckle up. It's going to get darker. Yeah. And in that moment of realization where you say that, you get another extra laugh off of it because people are like, oh, that's right. This is okay. And it's going to get worse. Oh, my goodness. How much worse can it get? Like,
I love that.
Yeah.
I love when I hear that. Like, hey, man.
Yeah, it's like,
this is just the beginning,
yeah,
man.
it's like,
you haven't heard
holy
shit yet.
like, what happened in your life if child molestation is not the darkest thing? Like, how dark are we? And so you can actually end up building extra laughs into it, but you got to lead into it and have people where you can't just be like, go from like a set at like a bit about puppies and then like, so I was molested as a kid, unless that is also your pattern of like you went to Jeselnik, whereas you go back and forth.
Mm-hmm. It's funny that you brought up Mike Birbiglia. I think his Walk With Me special was
Sleepwalk With Me,
super amazing. And is that what it's called? Walk With Me?
Yeah, Sleepwalk With Me. Yeah,
Sleepwalk With Me.
It actually turned into a movie that it was an independent film. It was fantastic as well.
It's a movie?
Yeah, he made a movie about it.
I didn't know it was a movie.
Yeah.
Why haven't they checked that shit out, man?
It was on the indie film circuit. It was really good.
I'm pretty sure you can find it online.
Oh yeah.
Find everything online. But like that was one of the specials where I I aspire one of my comedy to kind of be like, because it was an amazing, just the way the story of it was just amazing, and I'm not gonna say that he's like one of the reasons I wanted to do comedy, but it sure was an aspiration to be able to draw in an audience like that and to just be so complete, and it was just fucking cool, and
Yeah.
a lot of, I don't know, so I'm just talking now.
There's a great the fact he's able to get interpersonal, and also I love, so my show has a story arc to it, and
Yeah, man,
Christopher
I wanna check
Titus's
the show.
Norman Rockwell's Bleeding and Loves Evil have these beautiful story arcs to them, and when you have something that people can follow all the way through, it becomes you get a much better connection with an audience versus just doing a standard hour of jokes. I do a standard hour. And after the show, people might be like, "Oh, that was a really great show. That was so funny." And on the way out, they might, want to buy a T-shirt or something like that. But when I do the Suicide Note show, the connections that you end up getting with people, I have people send me paragraph long Facebook messages, or we'll talk for an hour after the show about really deep personal things because I've opened up to them and we've actually had a connection. They've actually followed along, and so they end up opening up back to me. And some of the most interesting conversation. I literally spent, I think it was 6 hours talking with some audience members after one show, and we just chatted till like 1 a.m. in the morning, and you get to have those sort of conversations, and because you connected with people through that interpersonal long piece versus just being like, hey, that was a great joke about the president. Like it's more fulfilling also as a comic to be able to do it that way. I'd say.
Yeah. I would imagine that like that style is where like you do have people saying that you could have like not changed their life but like really made an effect in their life, and that's pretty awesome, man. Some people be like, oh, that's funny, it's the funniest special ever, or be like, hey, that was hilarious, but it also made me open up myself and made me rethink certain things, or maybe be able to talk about it a little bit more. Change people's lives for fucking.
There have been some people who have changed, and I'll tell you, it's probably long term for the better. I was just doing a show, and afterwards, someone came up to me, and there was a look of just disbelief and shattered on his face.
Yeah.
And he was like, "So when you're talking about the stuff with your relationship, I didn't realize that wasn't normal." And he was watching this person who started reevaluating their entire relationship and realizing that the relationship they were in right then was not a healthy relationship, based off of the stories I had told about the really screwed up things that happened in my previous relationship. So it changed his life. I mean, hopefully it's for the better in the sense that they get out of the bad relationship.
You mean you're not supposed to get punched every night before you go to bed?
Yeah, no, because I've had dildos thrown at my head, all sorts of things.
And those things are fucking aerodynamic. They get that wind that turning and
I've had exes who've hacked into my emails and gone through all my messages and stuff like that. And so stuff like that, and watching someone have that moment of realization of oh, okay. I'm that's probably hopefully for the better. And that's something you don't get a normal comedy show. Is usually you don't have that life changing revelation of oh man, my entire life was messed up. I should probably deal with that stuff. And hopefully they deal with it. I haven't done a follow-up to see. Unfortunately, I talk to so many people after shows that are experiences like that. You can't follow up with everyone. I know I've been able to help a few people directly with getting with directing them towards resources. I don't know. I can't fix people's lives, but I've collected now a bunch of resources where I'm oh, hey, if you're having this problem, check out this place. It's fantastic. Or, go check out. I always love recommending to people. Some hospitals have what are called access centers. They're not in ER and they're not a psych ward. They're an in-between. So literally you show up and it's just mental health evaluation. They don't absolutely hold you. So it's not you're doing an inpatient stay. You just go there, a professional will evaluate you. They'll have you kick out for around up to 24 hours is kind of the general time frame. And you get to have a professional say, hey, maybe you should be in the hospital. Or they'll go, hey, you know what, you're having a really bad day. Here's what we're going to do. We got you set up. Normally it takes a month and a half to get in a therapist, but usually they can be hey, we got you set up with a new therapist. You can see them this week. We have you set up with a psychologist, and we got you on these meds, and you're good to go. So it kind of provides a lot of people who are afraid to go to the hospital because I don't want to be stuck in crazy psych ward, but access centers, you show up there, and number one, you're not the one who has to make the decision about how well you are. You let trained professionals do that, and most of the time, you don't have to do a long stay, and it's about the same price as an ER visit. So I direct so many people over to those things where I'm like, hey, if you're having a rough time, just go check it out. Like it's not a huge commitment.
I think. Well, I'm not saying I think. I feel like a lot of issues people have is that they don't know how to discuss it with somebody, and a lot of times they just need to just somebody to talk to, and just have the person listen, and not always be like, and know that they're not going to be judged in what they're saying.
Yeah.
It's like that right there helps a lot of people out if they just use it. The problem is, the stupid saying, you can't bring a horse to water or whatever, but it's just communication between human beings.
And that's the access centers usually do a therapist and a psychologist or psychiatrist review, so you get to talk to people.
Do you have any thoughts on psychedelics being used for therapy?
So I am once again a very big fan of fact-based things. So there have been there's been research into things like microdosing. Now they've found long-term microdosing actually has some issues of potentially increasing psychosis. The same thing can actually happen with long-term marijuana use as a main treatment for depression. So I usually don't recommend them based on science. MDMA, the actual chemical structure, not Molly. Molly is usually not chemically pure, but MDMA was really used in psychiatric practitioner. So they're re-exploring that as a potential with very small doses. I wouldn't recommend doing it just on your own to try to fix yourself, but potentially that's going to come back. I'm excited to see MDMA possibly come back into the medical field. Ketamine has just been approved as a nasal spray, and they've been using ketamine treatments, which are fantastic for a lot of people. That's technically not a psychedelic. The Special K is what people knew on the street.
Yeah.
And so through correct usage and administration, it's kind of like anything. You got to have the right, for medicine, you got to know the right doses.
Yes.
So I'm not going to be like, hey, you just go out on the street and try mushrooms and it'll fix everything. Like even if you're doing these things, even if they're using them in medical practice, they make sure there's the correct dosage.
I took some shrooms. I like to take shrooms, but I
in the past, but you don't do that ever anymore.
No. In the past, I took them when I went to Colorado and we went on a hike.
And that's legal in Denver.
Alana took some shrooms and she had way opposite experience. She did not have a good time, but so yeah, for her, she's realized it's not a thing for her. It affects her mind totally different than it affects my mind.
And that's it's same thing. Even antidepressants, you got to find the right one. So unfortunately, there's not like a magical fix-all for everyone. I think ketamine is kind of the closest one they've found so far.
Yeah, I've heard MDMA has been really good for people who have who are dealing with or about ready to let's just say die. Like they find out they have cancer and they've been using MDMA to treat them they'll take it.
The acceptance.
And they'll accept it and they change their whole view on it. And I haven't done much research on it. I just heard from what other people have said on other podcasts, and I can totally see how that would do it because I've done quite a bit of MDMA back in my day.
And it's because of the way that it structures on the brain, the release of the dopamine, serotonin, and so that's where you use the right thing for the right thing, and you don't just try to randomly try every drug on the street. Because we saw how that worked with Courtney Love and Lindsay Lohan, and I'll tell you, they're certainly not mentally healthy.
Unfortunately, they didn't. They're still alive.
Fortunately, they're still alive. Fortunately, they're still alive and just running their beach club in Mykonos.
Oh my goodness, Courtney Love and Lindsay Lohan. Lindsay Lohan, is that what you said?
Yeah, Lindsay Lohan. She has a beach club in Mykonos. I know because I made the mistake of telling my girlfriend there was a reality TV show about it, and so she insisted we watch every goddamn episode of Lindsay Lohan's beach club. Yeah, that's a mistake. The worst part is, she started watching it ironically, and then she really got emotionally invested. And I was like, God damn it. I don't care who was fired this week. You know, it's all fake anyways.
Yeah. And even if it is, whatever. Yeah. It's like you deal with that with your regular life. Why would you want to? I never understood that. I don't understand reality TV because I watch TV to get away from reality. I don't watch it so that I can see other people being their shitty reality, and then
It's a manufactured reality.
yeah, it is. A lot of it's fake and a lot of it's drama. But anyway,
We got an hour and 45 minutes in about 15 minutes.
yeah.
Really quick, before you last 15, do you have a restroom?
Yeah.
I can do 90 minutes, and that's when my bladder kicks like, okay, we're done with the show, right? Okay, okay.
Yeah, it's right here.
I'll be right back. He's going to fill you in about the wonderful sponsors.
Yeah, the wonderful sponsors here.
No free sponsorship.
It's the first store on your
Right.
right. Yeah, first store on your right. I have roommates. Sorry about the bathroom. Well, wow, this is really an amazing podcast.
Yes, a lot of information. Good information coming in.
And then definitely gonna watch this one again because
Yeah. Yes, there's a lot of information for up and coming comedians.
yeah, well, I don't know if it's a lot of information up and coming comedians, but there's a lot of information on. Well, yeah, I guess it is on ways to look at your. We really shouldn't be fixing the cameras in the between the shows.
I know, I understand, but
I
I didn't realize how fidgety you were today.
yeah, I'm always fidgety.
More so today.
We'll finish it up by talking about any kind of promos he wants to do. Where I can. What's that?
Disconnected.
Why?
I don't know.
Can you reconnect it?
I don't know why I could disconnect it.
Okay. Well, can we?
It's still streaming and recording. I just don't know why it's disconnected. This part?
Oh, okay.
Is that what this is?
Yeah. Well, I mean, as long as it's still streaming and still recording, that's all that really matters. Right?
All right, back to cover the few bases that haven't been covered. I don't know, we've covered everything from Spider-Man to sexual assault.
Which I feel like Uncle Ben might have been a little too close to Peter Parker. I'm not sure. No, just
You gotta have trauma to make a good superhero.
You do.
I'm waiting for my superhero powers. I've got the backstory. Got all the backstories needed. Oh, also, there's a wonderful thing about. I always love getting to talk to people who have had more extreme trauma because it always gives me perspective.
Yeah.
Like when I was still writing my show, I ran into someone. I was like, "Oh my god, I feel horrible in my life." So I was Jehovah's Witness when you're kicked out, like you lose all of your friends, everything like that. I was had breakups. I had being molested as a child, all this different stuff. And then I ran into this other comic who had also he was barely kicked out of the church, so he just barely lost everyone. But he grew up in Burundi, which is the second poorest country in the world. It's an African nation, and he had to flee. He grew up in a war zone and had to flee to the U.S. as a refugee. And I was like, "You taught me there." You know what? I actually don't. My life's not that bad anymore. That's okay.
There's always somebody who's
Yeah.
like way more.
There's always someone who's worse off than you. So talking to those people makes me feel good. I'm like, I got this.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it's in the fighting stance, like there's always gonna be someone who's better at you at fighting, like and there's always gonna be somebody who's had more traumatic effects than you.
Yeah.
And it's like it's interesting to meet those people. You definitely get an understanding of well, here's what the more part is interesting how they came out of that and still are like a positive person. That's the part right there that's interesting. It's really is like you went through all that, and then look at you. You're you didn't let none of that stuff get to you, and you came out an amazing person.
Yeah. I sometimes hope that maybe some people who come to my show have that feeling at the end. They're like, "Oh shit, my life wasn't that bad," and he's still kicking around and feeling good.
I kind of feel like, we have all these mass shootings of people who didn't go through stuff like that. It's like maybe we should figure out what's going on there.
That's actually one of the opening jokes of my show. I figured out the first 5 minutes I build in is like a justification of like, hey, like we can all relax and chill. It's gonna be fine. One of them is like, we can all agree if every single school shooter hit a comedy open mic instead of an open gun range, like the world would be a much better place. Hands down. I mean, worst case scenario, they bomb at the open mic, they come back next week, shoot that place up, and I'm willing to trade a room full of like kids for open mic comedians. Like, save the school, kill some open mic comics. And I've been to way too many open mics. Like, people, there's a lot of people there that like in the middle of the open mic, they're like, I wish someone would just fucking shoot this place up so that we can end this thing.
Open mics are so brutal.
Yeah, they can be so incredibly. Anyone who attends a
Man, when
an open mic as an
I
audience,
saw you on stage, I was like, this dude is not a new guy. This guy knows what he's doing. I could clearly tell that you were experienced. That's why I was like, I need to go talk to him real quick. And I'm so glad that I did. And it's funny because like a while ago, I wouldn't even thought about talking to you because I'd be like, I would stop myself, be like, no, and then I've gotten to that point where I was like, no, just ask. It doesn't matter. Just ask. It never hurts to ask anybody. So when you said, yeah, you do it, and then you're like a 12-year veteran, I was like, this is gonna be kind of nervous. Cause I don't know. You're gonna be like, I'm hanging out with this 2-year comic at this, whatever. It's just very. But then it's also I have to remember that you've been through what I've been through.
yeah.
Because when we started doing comedy, I'm still obviously I'm way younger stage than you are, but I'm not saying I don't want to talk for you, but if you start doing open mics, you understand how.
Oh no, I just started out headlining. I just started out headlining.
You just started out headlining, just that bad.
I will say I was lucky enough that for open mics, and I got a recommendation from another comic, and so I literally did 4 open mics, and I was doing book shows and didn't do open mics for like 9 years.
Oh my goodness.
If I didn't have that reference though, I'd have been fucked. So thank you, Spencer King, once again. But yeah, no, usually most of the really good comics are nice because we're all, even if you're famous, quote unquote famous, like first of all, fame comes and goes. So they might be famous, or you might be famous in one niche. If you talk to the people that play Ingress, like I'm the most famous person in the Ingress world, but that's a world of like 500,000 people. And that's spread across the entire globe. So that's Niantic's first game from before Pokemon Go.
Oh, okay.
So once again,
that's right. You said that.
Yeah, I also love how my thing is if you have to explain to someone why you're famous, you're not famous. That's why I don't give a shit about credits. Like people will say credits when comics are walking up on stage. If you don't already know the person, like it might be momentarily impressive that they were on this television show, but if they go up and they don't make you laugh, you don't care that they were on True TV's Dumbest Criminals. Because they didn't make you laugh. And if you didn't know they were on True TV's Dumbest Criminals before, why do you, like, it's 15 seconds that you care and then it's gone. But the people that are in the higher levels have worked there, and they've usually slogged through years and years. Before Dane Cook was famous, he was in comedy for 8 years. Larry the Cable Guy was known as Dan Whitney originally.
Yeah, he was. That was
he
like,
worked
that's the
for
persona,
years.
right?
Yeah,
Larry the Cable Guy just like something.
So all of these people have worked a lot of years, and the worst case scenario, I think, you ask someone and someone says no, unless you're really like a dick about it afterwards, then they'll remember you. Otherwise, they're not gonna remember. You're not gonna. Even if they bitch about you, like it'll be like 10 seconds and then they forgot because they have other things that they're going to be doing. And then on the alternate side, I always think when people ask, you can say no, but there's always that theory of like no with a number. Is from a sales perspective, rather than always just saying no. If someone asks you to do something like, I can't do that unless you can pay me X amount, and then you're rejecting them nicely. But the worst case scenario is whatever that number is, if they're willing to pay it, like for a show, like let's say that a Christian conservative church asked me to do a show, and I don't. There's a few, like I wouldn't do the Westboro Baptist Church just out of morals. Like I wouldn't do that, or a Klan rally out of morals. But
come on, do a Klan rally. Why not?
Actually, I would do that I would do that for me, and I would do all of the material about how white people are just shitty and fucking up the world. Like that's all I would do. Just only for Klan. I would write an hour just for Klan rallies about how horrible I don't have an hour about how horrible white people are, but I will write that for the Klan. But most of the time, like let's say I wouldn't normally want to do a Christian conservative church, rather than saying no, I'm not going to do your show. I'd be like, In order to keep that day open, I might have another show that we paid. If you guys can pay me $2,000, then I'll do your show on that day. And if they're willing to, if they say yes for two, then you have $2,000. So, that way either you've nicely rejected them. It puts the impetus over on them of like, oh man, he's willing to do it, but we have to compensate him. So I'm not a big fan of no. It's like, say no with a number if you don't want to do it. Just be like,
Well, thank you for not making me pay you.
hey, I got a bottle of water imported all the way from Niagara. This is a brand established in 1963.
Yeah, that's one of our official water drink of this podcast.
It's a well-established and proven. And if I drive to Oregon right now, I can get a 10-cent refund on the bottle. So there you go.
Oh, wow. Wait. Are they giving refunds on bottles if you return them?
Oregon has a bottle deposit.
Why doesn't every state do that?
It depends on the state. I grew up in Oregon, so I know about Oregon's well.
I grew up in Iowa, in Davenport, and now that I remember, they had a thing where you return cans and get 5 cents.
Yeah.
Michigan did the same thing, but
And
they
that's
put
like
additional tax and charges on
So
bottles.
you get charged up front for it, and then you
don't
basically get it
mansplain
back.
that to me.
So that's she can't mansplain. She's a woman.
Is she though?
It's one of my favorite horrible jokes that my girlfriend hates with a passion, but I will do it every time.
What?
Every single time she starts talking, she's like, starts saying something about mansplaining.
Yeah.
I will go, okay, Google, define mansplaining. And Google's voice is a woman, so I make a woman explain mansplaining to my girlfriend. She hates it because I've done it like 20 times now. But for me, it's fun every single time.
I hate that term mansplaining too, because it's like, well, I'm just trying to explain something. The fact that I'm a man is something that I can't control.
Yeah, I'm always like, I would have explained it to a dude too. People are just stupid. That's no, honey. I don't think you're stupid. I think everybody's stupid.
Yeah, everybody's dumb for that. There's so many new words that are terms that are used now that are like just ridiculous. Like, come on now.
Unfortunately, we overuse them. They become too hot button and then become annoying instead of being appropriate.
Yes. What else did I want to bring up real quick before we break it to the end? Because I got to pee too, but I might as well just stop. I can hold on. You got anything you want to plug? Any shows coming up?
So in case anyone was watching this feature, the website usually the best place just to go. I'm going to be out in Houston, October 24th through 22nd is going to be the next time I'm in the Texas area. I have shows in Kansas and Nebraska coming up. I travel all around. Literally, I started last month. I do horrible schedule booking. I should really do better because I started August. I was in Orlando, and the next week I was in Boise, Idaho, and the next week I was in I was in Fort Collins before I was in Orlando, and the week after that I was in I think Durango, Colorado. I just ping pong all over the place. I need to do better. I'll be at the World Series of Comedy in St. Louis doing one of their alt shows. So if you just check the website comiccollin.com, that links over to everything I do. It has a link over to the TED Talk. It has a link over to my Suicide Note tour, and I always post the dates on there. It has a link over to my ingress work.
Is there somewhere where people can watch your Suicide Note tour, or is that right now still something you just have to catch?
It is live only right now. At the end, I plan to eventually film it, but right now I want to do it. There's so much, especially with a show like this, having it live and to be able to have that connection. There's a connection. If you've never been to a live comedy show, go to it. It is better than any Netflix special you'll watch. Because it is
definitely.
Because you were there and live in the moment. It was something that is so interpersonal and so interconnected. The feeling to be able to connect with people in that moment is so precious. Eventually, I'll film it and then I'll burn it and I'll probably never do that show again. I'm writing 2 more compendium shows afterwards. So I'm right now in the middle of writing my Suicide Note 2, and Suicide Note 3 is slated, and some stuff's being written for that at the same time. So originally
it's going to be like a what did I do with a
trilogy. Yeah,
there we go.
That's the goal. Originally, I just wrote the Suicide Note, and then I was writing another show afterwards about. I wanted to start writing it about the alternate side. So in Suicide Note, I very much talk about everything that happened to me, but I also then want to address how I've been a dick and the things I've done wrong and how I've hurt other people. I think it's important to acknowledge that, but also I want to acknowledge how we're at a societal moment where we're attacking people for anything they've done wrong, and I'm very much the liberal progressive side. I literally babysat people's current kids so they could get abortions. Like, that's how liberal I am. That's the only time I babysit is so you can go get an abortion. Like, that's... I've loaned people money so they could get them done.
This whole podcast, that's been the most fucked up and funny thing out of all the
yeah. So like that's where I sit on the liberal side.
Yeah.
And that's just true stories. And but so the liberal and progressive side, we really love this idea of, there's a thing called ban the box. It's a movement that the idea is once people are out of prison, that shouldn't fall in. You shouldn't have to check a felon box. If you've served your time, and we call it serving your time, if you've paid your penance, we need to let you have a life. We need to let you have a job. We need to let you have housing. All of those things. It's a very progressive ideal. It's being pushed very hard in the progressive movement. But at the exact same time, cancel culture has come about, where it's like, you did something wrong, you're canceled forever.
Yeah.
So we have this weird dichotomy. So it's that finding that middle ground, and the struggle on ground was about making how we're all human, we all make mistakes, and admitting my mistake, but also acknowledging that we need to have a path to redemption.
Yeah.
Someone doesn't automatically get it. We don't need to reward it to someone just because they issue a single apology. They need to demonstrate that they've actually worked towards it. But we can't, if we keep going with cancel culture, we're going to be saying that people are disposable, and that people can forever be written off, and we're gonna lose vast swaths of society, and ultimately we'll lose ourselves if we are honest about everything that we personally have done, because every single person I know has done something that should get them canceled, quote unquote. So, but also every person I know has also worked. Most of the people I know have worked back and have made penance, have changed the way that they did things, have changed their thoughts. I was raised Jehovah's Witness. I was raised with very horrible anti-LGBTQ, transphobic viewpoints that I had to correct. If you say, well, when you were 18 years old, you didn't recognize trans rights, so you're canceled. My life is so much different than back when I was raised religious. And so I had to work, I had to change, and I do a lot of advocacy and other work for the things that I previously had incorrect viewpoints. I still make mistakes, I still correct them. So that was the idea for the next show. But then I had to shift that to part 3 because I had to deal with a lot of anger that's left over. That's kind of, you don't immediately go from depression to acceptance. And so now I'm trying to write out the part where I am still angry and address the anger in that second point, because a lot of shit happened after I wrote the first show. My Suicide 2's working title is At Gunpoint, because I've literally been fucking pulled out of my car at gunpoint. Thanks to a lying ex. Yeah, that's a fun time.
Okay,
so
well, if you ever come back, we're definitely gonna talk more about that.
Yeah. That's once the court dates are over. Also gotta finish. I gotta wait for court to finish. I gotta finish. Seriously, I gotta finish some court shit and suing her before I can finish writing all that show. Good times.
You look so nice, but there's like this box of all these.
All sorts of fucked up.
I will praise your girlfriend right now because you have so much baggage.
Oh yeah, no. There's a reason she got her tubes tied so we wouldn't have kids. You don't want these genetics.
Alana gives me shit about me, and she says how much baggage I have.
Oh
See,
no!
Alana?
I'm all of LaGuardia Airport. Is just all the baggage.
Also true. The better looking you are, the more shit comes with you. Cause you're a handsome man, motherfucker.
Oh, thank you very much.
Well, I was gonna say.
I'll see if I can use one of my hall passes.
That is awesome though that you said that about how like working out that box out of box. What is it called again?
Well, which one?
The where you come out of jail.
Oh, ban the box.
Yeah, ban the box.
Ban the box.
Because when that is very true. Supposedly, the reason you go to jail is to do your dues, and you come out and you're supposed to not introvert, but like get back transition back into society. But then there's certain things you can't even do because of that. Mm-hmm. Now maybe the gun one thing is okay.
If you're a violent offender gun, but that's much different than like you can't work at this job.
Say you shouldn't have a gun, but like jobs. Mm-hmm. Who's to say that you did not, that your brain had like so much evolved now to where you're way more capable to have this type of job. Fucking you grow up is what it is, and you change, and but then you're still not allowed to do certain things. Like you're not allowed to vote. Why?
Depending on the state,
you're in society now. You should be able to help decide what changes in and around you. because
Well,
it's part of you. It's gonna affect you.
As rough as voting is, I just look back at the things where if you want someone to integrate into society, you can't push them over. I mean, there's so many pieces of housing that you can't live in. You're literally going to create areas where it's just like a former felon area, and the people that haven't reformed yet, if you congregate people together, then the society they're going to integrate with is going to be just more people that are unhealthy and struggling. So if you intersperse people and accept them, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't use some necessary caution. So the state of Utah, where I live, for the government positions, they've instituted a ban the box, with the exception of if it's someone who is going to be handling money, then they will check to make sure they don't have a financial crime. Because I'll give you a little bit of caution there. Or if they're going to be taking care of children or elderly people, they make sure that they haven't done child abuse or violent offenses. So there are a few things that they still check with the vast majority of jobs.
I mean, that's understandable.
Because not being able to get a job and not being able to get housing, you're not going to be able to reintegrate into society.
You're not going to take a guy who has, bestiality and put him to work at a zoo.
So, I mean, I don't know how many bestiality crimes, because bestiality is legal in Texas.
Shut up, is it?
Yeah.
No, it is not.
They might have just barely banned it recently, but it was up until.
You mean I could have been banging my
gay
zebra
marriage
this whole
was
time?
illegal, but bestiality was, and there was a big thing about that with Texas, where it was like, why can't gay people get married, but you can have sex with a cow?
It's getting lonely. It's getting lonely. There's a lot of space in Texas. People are out there.
Just remember, moo means moo. That's important. Respect the cow. If it starts walking away,
moo means moo.
Yeah.
That sounded so weird.
It's the same thing. My girlfriend's cat really enjoys being spanked on the butt. Like, yeah, she likes that. But I also have to remember, meow means meow. So meow means no. It also means yes. I guess what I'm trying to say is cats can't give great consent, so don't have sex with cats. That's your message for the day.
Yeah.
Incest isn't that bad, and don't have sex with cats.
If you take anything out of this podcast, take that.
Yeah.
To heart. Okay. Well, I guess that's all we can say for now. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Absolutely.
We'll definitely, if you're ever back in town, I would love to have you back on.
I'll hopefully be swinging.
Why not?
It'd be a great chance to introduce you to some people in the area to help you get some gigs.
To help him get some gigs? He don't need help getting no gigs. Look how badass
you can always use help knowing the right people. Hopefully I'll be back in Houston. I'll really have to drive through Dallas area in October, November. So maybe I'll see some people in the area. Mm-hmm. Hopefully again then.
Well, if you're driving through, if you have time, we can have lunch or something and just take a break from driving and whatnot.
And if anyone out there wants to have lunch,
anybody out there,
Randy? Hit me up on the website.
Randy wants to hit talk about getting some gigs. Okay. Thanks everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow.
So long.
I'm doing another podcast tomorrow. Tomorrow, the guy that comes on tomorrow, I'm having a